Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles. Chapter 4590. The strangest thing was that when the snowflakes fell from the Yaotai mountain, whether it was on the ground or on the mountains, before the snowflakes melted, the closed palms were all facing the same direction. No one knew whether that direction was where the immortal palace was located or not, but everyone knew that even if it wasn't, that direction was it after the Yaotai mountain became famous. Yaoju's snow covered the sky and covered the mountains. In this heavy snow, there were thousands of Taoist cultivators standing quietly in the air. Their eyes flashed as they stared fervently at the Yaotai mountain, waiting for the Yaotai gathering to begin. These cultivators were no different from the cultivators 300 years ago. Although they knew that this was the immortal palace's arrangement, they had no choice but to gather here and wait for an opportunity to survive and cultivate. However, in this group of cultivators, there was a mid-nascent soul cultivator who was different from the others. This cultivator had a handsome face and a tall figure. His face carried a kind of indifference and confidence. He didn't look at the Yaotai mountain. Instead, he looked at the nascent soul cultivators in the distance from time to time, as if he was looking for something. Occasionally, a few nascent soul cultivators would notice his gaze and nod at him in acknowledgement. This cultivator was called Jiqingzi. He was from the Yan province's curved cloud pavilion and had entered the ranks of nascent soul cultivators 500 years ago. Moreover, Jiqingzi had also participated in the Yaotai Mountains gathering several hundred years ago. However, this Jiqingzi had the ability to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. When he attended the banquet held by Reverend Huida, he first raised his cup to Reverend Huida. Then, he was moved by Reverend Qing Su's words. The next day, when the Star Lord Palace's Hall Master Kong Hongwu took out the lot of 10 state preceptors, Jiqingzi was one of the first nascent soul cultivators to leave the Yaotai mountain. Thus, Jiqingzi was one of the few nascent soul cultivators who escaped that disaster. Jiqingzi left the Yaotai mountain and lost the opportunity to establish a country. If he wanted to cultivate, he had to find another way. Reverend Qing Su was naturally his first choice. After Reverend Qing Su left with a few gold core cultivators as a cover, Jiqingzi and a few other nascent soul cultivators caught up with Reverend Qing Su and became the Grand Mist Ancestor's subordinates. Taoist Master Qing Su was originally unhappy that he failed to recruit Xiaohua, but when he saw Jiqingzi and other nascent soul cultivators coming over to pledge their allegiance, he was very happy. Soon after, he did not dare to stay in the vicinity of Yaotai Mountain and flew away with Jiqingzi. After that, they waited at several other places for the Dao Gates cultivators that they had arranged to meet before returning together to pay their respects to the Grand Mist Ancestor. Even though the Grand Mist Ancestor was cold by nature, he had absolute leadership skills when it came to developing his forces. He treated Jiqingzi and the others very well and was not stingy with their cultivation techniques, pills, and secret techniques. In the past 200 years, Jiqingzi, who had reached the end of his cultivation, broke through his bottleneck once again and reached the late nascent soul stage. He became Taoist Qing Su's right-hand man in one fell swoop. Previously, this Yaotai mountain was the place where Qing Su Taoist often came to recruit people. Later on, when Qing Su Taoist left for the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, Jiqingzi was in charge of this place. This time round, apart from being in charge of recruiting Dao sect cultivators, Jiqingzi had also brought over 100 cultivators to snatch the lot of the imperial tutor. Looking at the fluttering Yaojukshu, Jiqingzi's gaze drifted away. The scene from several hundred years ago involuntarily appeared in his mind. It said that fate makes fools of people. It's really so. Thinking back, that Taoist Huida was so full of energy at the banquet that I was completely convinced. But who knew? He was actually a pawn of the Star Lord Palace. The Yaotai Mountain gathering that time was also a rare danger. Fortunately, I reacted quickly and withdrew in time. If I had followed Taoist Huida into Yaotai Mountain, I would definitely have fallen on the Yaotai Mountain like those nascent soul cultivators. Less than 1 out of 10 would survive. This is something that has never happened before in the Yaotai Mountain Gathering. Moreover, there are many mysteries in the Yaotai Mountain Gathering that have not been solved even until today. Who killed the Star Lord Palace's Kong Hongwu? Even though some people suspect that it's my Grand Mist ancestor, he has always smiled without saying anything and has never admitted it directly. Who knows if he disdains to admit it, or denies it? After all, ambushing and killing a 5th-level Essence Energy Grandmaster is really nothing much to him. Some people also say that it's an internal strife in the Immortal Palace. There are other forces in the Star Lord Palace. Otherwise, how could there only be 10 State Masters in the Yaotai Mountain Gathering? It's clear that someone from the Immortal Palace set a trap for Kong Hongwu. Moreover, the Confucian cultivator hiding among the Daoist cultivators also killed several of Kong Hongwu's trusted subordinates one by one, bringing the entire Yaotai Mountain under his control. Of course, some people also say that it's Xiao Hua, Daoist Xiao, whose name is now more famous than the ancestor. But others may not know, but I saw Xiao Hua at the banquet that year. He was really only a nascent soul cultivator at that time. It seems that he wasn't Daoist Huada's opponent. How could he possibly kill Kong Hongwu? Moreover, didn't the ancestor say at that time that Xiao Hua's strength was not enough to kill him? Xiao Hua's strength is not enough to kill Kong Hongwu. It must be the Immortal Palace's method. Perhaps the mastermind behind the scenes is the current Star Lord Palace's Palace Master Linghu Pihuan. Ji Qingzi had just thought of Linghu Pihuan when, rumble. The sound of beating drums resounded from the Yaotai Mountain. The sound of the drums was ear-splitting. The red clouds began to roll, and the snowflakes in the sky were shattered into pieces. Immediately, rays of golden light pierced straight down from the clouds, dyeing those snowflakes. Regardless of whether it was the snowflakes or the snowflakes, they all showed a kind of graceful luster. In this golden light, the red clouds in the sky began to gather in every direction. In no more than a moment, they again condensed into 28 enormous clouds. 28 brightly armored immortal generals appeared above the clouds. Ji Qingzi's gaze swept around. He already saw clearly that these immortal generals were the 28 star generals. They were different from the ones he had seen before. Let alone that Hornwood Dragon Linghu Pyran, Wellwood Dragon Shangguan Yeren, and Tail Fire Tiger Ouyang Jingran's appearances were different, even the other dozen star generals had changed. Immediately, many ceremonial guards spread out. Dressed in Confucian attire, wearing a tall crown on his head, and holding a jade tablet in his hand, the figure of Star Lord Palace's Palace Master Linghu Pihuan flew out from the Yaotai Mountain. Linghu Pihuan was the same as Kong Hongwu back then. His eyes wandered all around to look at the nearby Daoist cultivators. Afterwards, he raised the jade tablet with both hands and bowed towards the rising sun in the east, reciting, "My name is Linghu Pihuan. I have received the hidden immortal continent's Confucian cultivators' trust to control Star Lord Palace. Today is the day that Star Lord Palace opens the Yaotai Assembly. I, the 1,000 star generals, earnestly request the Confucian cultivators' past ancestors to permit me to open the Yaotai Mountain to hold the Yaotai Assembly." And similarly, there was no difference at all. Following Linghu Pihuan's words, ray after ray of awe-inspiring qi descended from the Yaotai Mountain. That awe-inspiring qi's color was extremely dazzling. Following this rainbow-like pillar of light, another imperial edict sparkling with golden light fell from the sky. However, just as Linghu Pihuan bowed, the instant he received the imperial edict, woo, woo. The sound of a gale's furious howl came from the distant horizon. The wind's howl in winter was originally normal, but before this howl, it unexpectedly shook all around. The heaven-earth origin energy within several tens of thousands of li seemed to be swallowed by a giant mouth as it flowed towards one place. Let alone that the crimson clouds and snowflakes in the sky were torn to shreds, even the rainbow-like pillar of light above the Yaotai Mountain violently swayed in this gale. The previous world's might was practically swept clean. This. Linghu Pihuan was stunned, shame and anger appearing on his face. While he was inwardly astonished, he slowly straightened his body. The clear light in his eyes faintly flickered, wanting to look at the origin of the gale. It was also at this moment that the sound of thunder that soared to the sky rang out again. Countless thick, dragon-like thunderbolts descended from the sky, shrouding the distant horizon. Those streaks of lightning flickered, illuminating the entire sky. Wherever they passed, the auspicious aura of the Yaotai mountain and the rainbow-colored glow had long been covered. In front of this thunderbolt, the phenomenon that had just shocked the Taoist cultivators was like child's play. Fortune Gate. Linghu Pihuan didn't need to use the clear light at all. Seeing such a strange lightning, how could he not know what had happened? He looked at the place where the thunderbolt landed in astonishment. Seeing the flickering figures treading on clouds, he was truly puzzled in his heart. What? What are they doing at my Yaotai mountain? Of course, this thought was merely a flash, and Linghu Pihuan smiled bitterly again. Although the reputation of the Fortune Gate's disciples was currently unparalleled on the hidden immortal continent, the Fortune Gate's disciples were still Taoist disciples. What were they doing at the Yaotai mountain? Other than participating in the Yaotai mountain meeting, other than seizing the Grand Preceptor's lot. There didn't seem to be any other reason, right? However, the Fortune Gate had already braved the universal condemnation of the world's Confucian cultivators to establish a Taoist sect. Did they still care about establishing a Taoist sect? At the same time that Linghu Pihuan came to his senses, Ji Qingzi was also dumbfounded. Looking at the thunderbolt in the distance, he couldn't care less about hiding anything, and transmitted his voice to the other cultivators. Are they Fortune Gate's disciples? Could it be that they're also here to seize the Grand Preceptor's lot? Senior. A golden core cultivator who was closer to Ji Qingzi replied bitterly, if there's no accident, they should be. But. Ji Qingzi said, but, a few times, but he couldn't continue. He was even more bitter than that golden core cultivator. While these Taoist cultivators and the Confucian cultivators of the Yaotai Mountain Star Lord Hall were still in shock, in the distant horizon, 100,000 Fortune Gate's disciples clad in armor and holding magic treasures in their hands flew over in an orderly formation. The battle formation formed by these 100,000 disciples was the Golden Crow Immortal Slaying Demonic Formation. Thick bolts of lightning fell on the battle formation, turning into lightning that scattered around the disciples, entangling the clouds beneath the Fortune Gate's disciples' feet. From afar, the 100,000 disciples looked like a huge golden crow made of lightning, exuding an invincible aura. Damn it! Linghu Pihuan couldn't help but curse inwardly, are they here to seize the Grand Preceptor's lot? Or are they here to destroy my Star Lord Hall? Chapter 4591. Just as Linghu Piming was at a loss on how to respond, a will like that of heaven and earth emerged from the battle formation and crashed down on the Yaotai mountain. Then, a tall and skinny figure that looked like a heavenly god flew out from the lightning, surrounded by lightning. Xiao Hua. When Linghu Piming saw this tall and thin figure, he actually felt a sense of relief. He held the Immortal Palace's imperial edict in his hand and watched Xiao Hua fly slowly, gathering all the light and darkness between heaven and earth on his body. He couldn't help but have mixed feelings in his heart. Linghu Piming knew more than Ji Qingzi, so he admired this enigmatic human race Mahayana realm even more. 300 years ago, he was the one who suggested Kong Hongwu recruit him, but 300 years later, he had become a supreme cultivator in the eyes of millions. Since Xiao Hua stood at the peak of human cultivation, then all the mysteries on the Yaotai mountain that day had been solved. However, who would dare to mention the Yaotai mountain gathering again? The thunder became louder and louder, and the lightning became more and more dazzling. The Fortune Gate disciples flew from the horizon to the side of the Yaotai mountain. The several thousand Tao cultivators didn't dare to be negligent. They all tidied up their clothes and prepared to greet Xiao Hua. The monarchs who were preparing to recruit Tao cultivators under the Yaotai mountain couldn't sit still in their tents and rushed out one by one. They didn't dare to approach and only stood respectfully on the ground, not daring to be slow in the slightest. As for the Star Lord Hall's immortal soldiers and immortal generals, where was their previous arrogance? They were quite embarrassed and nervously gripped their weapons. They looked at the Fortune Gate disciples and secretly glanced at Linghu Piming, afraid that Linghu Piming would give the order to attack. Just when Linghu Piming's mouth was dry, the lightning suddenly dimmed, and even the sound of thunder was annihilated. The 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples silently scattered in all directions, surrounding the Yaotai mountain. Linghu Piming had only casually swept his clear sight light over the Fortune Gate's disciple closest to him, and he couldn't help but shudder in fear. Late nascent soul realm cultivator, his grandma, an ordinary Fortune Gate's disciple, is already at the upper 4th grade of essence force. These 100,000 Fortune Gate's disciples can easily flatten my Star Monarch Hall. While Linghu Piliu was still feeling apprehensive, the 100,000 Fortune Gate's disciples stopped in midair, not making a sound. Xiao Hua also quietly stood in the distance, no longer approaching Yaotai Mountain. For a time, apart from the falling snow and the falling clouds, there was no other sound between heaven and earth. Seeing that the Fortune Gate disciples were motionless, Linghu Piming was embarrassed once again. If it was before Linghu Piming received the imperial edict from the Immortal Palace, he could have flown in front of Xiao Hua and bowed respectfully, facing Xiao Hua with the etiquette of a junior. But now that he had the imperial edict in his hand and was representing the Immortal Palace, he couldn't go and greet Xiao Hua personally. However, it was impossible for Fortune Gate's disciples to come over. After all, they represented Xiao Hua and the Fortune Gate. Just like this, the awkwardness lasted for half a cup of tea's time. The Star Lord's Hall's Star Generals' backs were sweating. They were afraid that Xiao Hua would point her finger and these 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples would attack. Sigh. Linghu Piming turned to look at these Star Generals, pondering for a moment, then sighed in his heart. He urged his body to move, but at this moment, Fu Jiwen in front of Xiao Hua's body flickered. A strange rune appeared, and Fu Jiwen's figure crossed the sky and landed in front of Linghu Piming. I, Fu Jiwen, greets Hall Master Linghu. Fu Jiwen did not lack etiquette, cupping his hands respectfully. Linghu Piming let out a long sigh of relief. He raised the imperial edict in his hand and smiled. This Hall Master is now holding the Immortal Palace's imperial edict, temporarily considered as my Immortal Palace's envoy. Due to the Immortal Palace's etiquette, this Hall Master is unable to perform a full greeting. Please forgive me, fellow Immortal Fu. It's fine. Fu Jiwen did not mind and said, my sect master has decreed that my Fortune Gate's disciples wish to establish a country in Gun Province. According to the Hidden Immortal Continent's customs, my Fortune Gate's disciples and other Dao sect's disciples have come to the Yaotai Mountain to participate in the Yaotai Mountain's assembly. Hall Master Linghu, please open the Yaotai Mountain's Dragon Gate according to the customs and place the Imperial Preceptor's lot in. Sigh. Ji Qingzi looked at Xiao Hua's familiar figure in the distance and sighed, if I had known earlier that Fortune Gate's disciples would come to take the Imperial Preceptor's lot, I wouldn't have come. In this world, which Dao sect's cultivator can compete with Fortune Gate's disciples? I only hope that Fortune Gate's disciples will stop before going too far and just take a few and leave the rest for I can also return and give an explanation to Ancestor Ah. Unfortunately, what happened next made Ji Qingzi feel like he had fallen into an ice cave. Linghu Piming probed, fellow Immortal Fu, may I ask how many Imperial Preceptor's lots your sect needs? Fu Jiwen smiled and replied, no comment. After saying that, Fu Jiwen's figure returned to Xiao Hua's side. Since it's the Fortune Gate's Daoist Xiao who wants to establish a kingdom, this junior doesn't dare to compete. Before Fu Jiwen could land beside Xiao Hua, a golden core cultivator immediately bowed to Xiao Hua and left, not even leaving his name behind. Damn it. Ji Qingzi gritted his teeth, this cultivator is too opportunistic. Sure enough, after a short while, nearly 70% of the Dao sect's cultivators bowed and left. There was no lack of mid-nascent soul cultivators among them. Zhiqingzi wanted to leave at this time, but he was afraid that the Grand Mist Ancestor would punish him, so he could only brace himself and stand in the air. Seeing that more and more Dao sect's cultivators were leaving, Linghu Piming was also a little flustered. He did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly circulated his true qi to open the imperial edict. Rumble. The sound of a tide came from the imperial edict, just like before. Roar. A loud dragon's roar came from the tide, and soon after, a 10,000 zhang long yellow light rushed into the air. The yellow light was like a dragon leaping into the sky, dancing in the colorful light for a while before lying down on the Yaotai mountain. An indescribable dragon's might and authority weighed down on the surroundings even more than the Yaotai mountain. Unfortunately, today was destined to be different from previous years. Just as this dragon's might and authority rushed out of the Yaotai mountain and landed on the Fortune Gate's disciples, a light cough like a thunder formation sounded, and the space within 100 li of the Yaotai mountain immediately shattered. Tens of millions of lightning threads poured out from this space, and all of the dragon's might and authority were completely shattered by the yellow light like a dragon leaping into the air, scattering into pieces in the air. At this time, the voice that sounded like a big yellow bell reverberated between heaven and earth. By the will of the heavens, the hidden immortal ancestors congratulate each other. In today's enlightening Jade Pavilion Grand Meeting, the stars will. This voice was incomparably loud and dignified, but in the ears of Linghu Piming and the others, they couldn't help but bitterly smile and feel awkward in their hearts. Even in the ears of Zhiqingzi and the others, this voice was far less shocking than before, not to mention the effect of melting the foundation of their Tao. With great difficulty, the voice settled. Boom! A loud sound like a wave crashing into a mountain rock rang out, and the entire imperial decree slowly closed. The imperial decree once again fell into Linghu Piming's hands. If it was before, Linghu Piming just had to send the imperial decree into the sky, and the yellow dragon would transform into a dragon gate. Unfortunately, the yellow dragon had already been shattered by Xiaohua's cough, so how could there still be the auspicious sign of the yellow dragon transforming into a dragon gate? Linghu Piming was also helpless, and he still sent the imperial decree out. The imperial decree was like a meteor that soared into the sky, and crashed into the sky. A huge black hole flickered, and a golden frame appeared. Xiaohua's figure moved, and then he stopped. A wisp of Buddhist consciousness appeared, and disappeared along with the imperial decree into the black hole. At the same time, a splendor that was even more dazzling than the sun rushed out from the black hole. As everyone slightly closed their eyes, a somewhat damaged dragon gate appeared on the Jade Mountain. Linghu Piming hastily flew to the front of the dragon gate, raised his hand, and took out several jade boxes from his wide sleeve. He stole a glance at Xiaohua, and said in a slightly loud voice, "Fellow immortals, these are several treasures that my Star Lord Hall has prepared for this Jade Pavilion Grand Meeting. If any fellow immortals are fated, feel free to look for them in the Jade Pavilion Grand Meeting." After he finished speaking, Linghu Piming did not explain what was inside these jade boxes. He raised his hand and sent them into the Dragon Gate. Several colored carps swallowed them, and just like before, they disappeared without a trace. Finally, Linghu Piming waved his sleeve again, and several hundred rays of multicolored light rushed out. Several hundred fist-sized, somewhat similar to the imperial scholar's lot flew out. Linghu Piming coughed and said, "These are the 483 imperial scholars' lot for this year's Jade Pavilion Grand Meeting. My Star Lord Hall will place them within the winnowing basket water leopard, 3 water ape, and chariot water worms 10-star arrays." Hastily saying this, Linghu Piming waved his hand. Several hundred dragon roars came from the Swanee Imperial Jade Seal. The Swanee outside the Imperial Jade Seal seemed to come alive, roaring as it brought a yellow cloud into the Dragon Gate and disappeared. Linghu Piming was finally relieved. He bowed towards Gao Tian and saluted, "Thank heavens for your kindness, the ceremony is complete." Immediately after, the 28 star generals looked at each other. Some star generals' faces were filled with joy, some with bitterness, and even more with schadenfreude. One by one, they urged their magic clouds to descend into the Jade Mountain. Everyone. Fu Jiwen saw all the star generals leave, loudly shouting, "Enter the array, take all of the 483 national preceptors' lots." Yes. The Fortune Gate's disciples' auras were like rainbows, and as they answered in unison, the damaged Dragon Gate swayed twice. Seeing the 100,000 Fortune Gate's disciples enter the Dragon Gate one by one like lightning, Ji Qingzi and the other Dao sect's cultivators no longer dared to hesitate. They all turned their heads towards Xiaohua and cupped their fists, urging their figures to leave. Although the 483 imperial scholars' lot was not a small number, enough to establish 483 Dao sects countries on the hidden immortal continent, Ji Qingzi and the others did not doubt that with the Fortune Gate's strength, establishing 483 countries would be a piece of cake. After Ji Qingzi and the others left, Linghu Piming tidied his clothes and flew in front of Xiaohua. He bowed and said, "Junior Linghu Piming has come to greet Daoist Xiao." Junior was previously holding the Immortal Palace's imperial decree, so it was inconvenient for Junior to salute. Now, Junior has specially come to ask for forgiveness, cast a monthly vote, cast a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 4592. Amen. Xiaohua nodded slightly, glancing at Linghu Piming and saying, "I know. You don't need to mind." Linghu Piming said with a flattering smile, "Then Junior can rest assured. Apart from asking for forgiveness, Junior also wants to ask Senior. If Senior wants to establish a country, Senior only needs one imperial preceptor's signature. Furthermore, if Senior were to establish over 400 Daoist kingdoms at once, it would bring about endless trouble." Xiaohua looked at Linghu Piming and said with a smile, "Hall Master Linghu, do you want to know the reason?" "Yes, Senior. If Senior can give pointers, Junior will be endlessly grateful." Linghu Piming said with a nod. "I can tell you. However, you have to tell me something first." Xiaohua's gaze landed on Linghu Piming. That lightning-like gaze caused Linghu Piming to be alarmed, seemingly thinking of something. He hesitated slightly and said in a low voice, "If it doesn't involve the Immortal Palace's secrets, Junior will definitely report truthfully." Sure enough, Xiaohua asked, "You tell me why there were only 10 Imperial Preceptors' signatures in that Jadestage summit that I participated in back then? Why did the entire Jadestage mountain set up 3 grand formations all at once? What exactly was your goal in hunting my Dao sect's nascent soul cultivators?" Linghu Piming had a headache and said with a flattering smile, "Senior, this Junior is aware of the problem that you spoke of, but I also know very little. Furthermore, this Junior also really doesn't dare to reveal anything to Senior. Senior, please understand." If Linghu Piming kept evading, Xiaohua might use some divine ability to search Linghu Piming's memories. But Linghu Piming was so calm, Xiaohua couldn't make things difficult for him either. However, after Xiaohua pondered slightly, he asked again via voice transmission, "Linghu Piming, since that's the case, then I won't force you either. I'll ask you another matter that doesn't involve the Immortal Palace's secrets." Linghu Piming frowned, even more puzzled. Since it wasn't the Immortal Palace's secrets, why didn't Xiaohua ask but instead voice transmission? However, he didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly replied via voice transmission, "Senior, please speak. As long as Junior knows, I'll definitely say everything I know." Star Lord Hall's previous Hall Master Kong Hongwu, whose trusted aide is he? Xiaohua's eyes were fixed on Linghu Piyu, carefully observing the changes in his expression. When Linghu Piming heard this question, he immediately let out a sigh of relief. With a smile, he transmitted his voice, "Senior, on the surface, Palace Master Kong Hongwu is a trusted aide of Lord Sun Peng of the Hall of Enlightenment. However, according to what I know, this Hall Master Kong is also a member of the Heaven and Earth faction. Heaven and Earth Gate. Xiao Hua was startled. He seemed to have heard of this Heaven and Earth sect before, but he had never met anyone from the Heaven and Earth sect, so he was somewhat puzzled. What kind of organization is the Heaven and Earth sect? Senior. At this point, Linghu Piming had already revealed everything he knew. He hurriedly replied, the so-called Heaven and Earth sect is the Immortal Palace's Heavenly Mystery Halls organization in the 3 continents. Inside are Heavenly Mystery Hall's secret agents. Oh. How did you know? Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, this matter. Who else knows? Junior is someone Palace Master Kong trusts. There are some things he does not hide from Junior. However, every year, Palace Master Kong leaves Star Sovereign Hall for a few days, and at this time, if something happens, it is Junior who deals with it. Therefore, only Junior knows about this matter. Since they were talking about a person who had died several hundred years ago, Linghu Piming did not have any psychological burden, casually telling the truth, and coincidentally, Junior also knows that these few days are the days when the Heavenly Mystery Hall's Palace Master is personally inspecting the hidden immortal mainland. How do you know? Xiao Hua asked. This. Linghu Piming hesitated even more. He hesitated for a moment, looking at the back of the last Fortune Gate disciple who entered the Jade Mountain range. He clenched his teeth and asked, can Senior answer Junior's question? Naturally. Xiao Hua nodded and answered. Is Senior familiar with my Confucian Immortal Master? Linghu Piming's question was out of Xiao Hua's expectations, but Xiao Hua did not hesitate and nodded, yes, this old man and Wenxiu are old acquaintances. Hearing that his guess was the same as Xiao Hua's answer, Linghu Piming did not hesitate and said, then Junior must know the true scholar. You don't need to say any more, this old man already knows. Xiao Hua instantly understood that this Linghu Piming was a trusted aide of a true scholar. He naturally knew some secrets of the Heavenly Mystery Hall. Many thanks, Senior. Seeing that Xiao Hua did not ask any more questions, Linghu Piming expressed his gratitude. In fact, when Xiao Hua and Gusu Churi left Jade Mountain Range, Linghu Piming had the opportunity to report to the Immortal Palace, but he reported to the True Scholar first, and the True Scholar's reply was concealed. But, just by leaving for a few days. I'm afraid it's not easy to determine Kong Hongwu's background, right? Xiao Hua asked again. Linghu Piming didn't really understand why the dead Kong Hongwu was worth Xiao Hua's repeated confirmation. However, he still honestly replied, Senior, please know that this Junior. After Kong Hongwu died, this Junior temporarily took charge of Star Lord Hall. This Junior knew that there were some secrets in Star Lord Hall that belonged to Kong Hongwu. Thus, the place where Kong Hongwu usually lived, before this Junior received the order from the Immortal Palace. This Junior didn't dare to rashly enter. However, after this Junior entered, I discovered that the places that this Junior had previously marked had all changed. These are the Heavenly Mystery Hall's actions. Good. Xiao Hua nodded, this old man understands. Then, can Senior tell this Junior why the Fortune Gate's disciples snatched all the Imperial Preceptor's lots? Linghu Piming asked, this matter concerns this Junior's future, this Junior cannot not ask. It's very simple. Xiao Hua smiled, first, this old man wants to establish a country in Xiao Country. Xiao Country. Linghu Piming was shocked, then Senior's Xiao Country, isn't it the biggest Dao Gate on the hidden immortal mainland? No, the biggest empire that surpasses all the Confucian cultivation countries. Linghu Piming, you must remember, the Fortune Gate's Xiao Country is a paradise in the hearts of the common people. Although it is the biggest country on the hidden immortal mainland, it is not called an empire. Since the previous scholars from various families were willing to preserve this paradise, then this old man will also preserve this paradise. Remember, it is to be preserved as a paradise. If anyone wants to touch the Shao country, don't blame us, the Fortune Gate's disciples, for being ruthless. Xiao Hua said with a smile, but there was a hint of coldness in his voice. Yes, this junior understands. This junior will immediately send a message to the Immortal Palace. Linghu Piming's expression changed slightly, bowing as he said, "Many thanks for senior's reminder. Don't be anxious, don't be anxious." Xiao Hua stretched out a finger and shook it. This old man has news that will make the Immortal Palace even more excited. "Senior, please speak." Linghu Piming's face turned even paler. "This old man wants to ask you, as the Star Sovereign Palace's Hall Master, do you know the way to the Immortal Palace?" Xiao Hua stared at Linghu Piming and asked again. Cold sweat appeared on Linghu Piming's back as he carefully said, "Senior may not know, but when this junior needs to return to the Immortal Palace will send an order, and this junior will be able to find the way back with the order. However, if this junior does not need to return to the Immortal Palace, this junior will definitely not be able to find the Immortal Palace. Of course, if senior snatches this junior's order, senior should be able to find the Immortal Palace, and this junior will have to bear the heavy punishment. Don't be afraid." Xiao Hua replied, "How can this old man snatch your order? This old man's purpose of taking the Imperial Preceptor's lot is to find the Immortal Palace." "Senior, senior." Linghu Piming hurriedly called out, "Why are you going to the Immortal Palace? You are a Dao Gates Grand Ascension Stage expert. Ah. A Dao Gates Grand Ascension Stage expert cannot go to the Immortal Palace." Xiao Hua sneered, "What kind of rule is this?" But. Linghu Piming was somewhat speechless. No one could forbid a Dao Gates Grand Ascension Stage expert from going to the Immortal Palace, not even Immortal Emperor Go Chen. But the problem was that the Immortal Palace's Confucian cultivators and Dao Gates cultivators were enemies. Xiao Hua, a Dao Gates Grand Ascension Stage expert, was swaggering around the Confucian cultivators' Immortal Palace, not provoking them. At this moment, Linghu Piming suddenly realized something and exclaimed, "I understand, senior, you want to use the Imperial Preceptor's lot to go to the Immortal Palace?" "Correct." Xiao Hua glanced sideways at the Jade Mountain's Dragon Gate. At this moment, that Dragon Gate was shaking, and Fortune Gate's disciples had already begun to rush out. 100,000 Fortune Gate's disciples were pressing down on the Jade Mountain. Not to mention a dozen star arrays. Even if the entire Jade Mountain was opened and the 3 star arrays were placed on the Jade Mountain, the Star Lord Hall's star generals wouldn't dare to go overboard and stop these fierce generals. After the first Fortune Gate's disciple flew out, even more Fortune Gate's disciples rushed out. These Fortune Gate's disciples all flew in front of Fujiwen, and after handing over the Imperial Preceptor's lot, they stood in midair. "Can Junior take his leave now?" Seeing that more than 400 disciples had already flown out, Linghu Piming's face flushed red. This was the shortest Jade Pavilion assembly in history, and if there were no accidents, there wouldn't be such a short record in the future. "Go." Xiao Hua nodded, "You can report this matter to the Immortal Palace." "Many thanks, senior." Linghu Piming bowed and hurriedly flew into the Jade Mountain. In the time it took to exchange a few words, Fujiwen looked at the Imperial Preceptor's lot that he had put into his cosmos sack and flew over. The Fortune Gate's disciples that flew out from the Jade Mountain no longer looked at Fujiwen, and all flew in midair in formation. "Master." Fujiwen passed the cosmos sack to Xiao Hua and said, "There are 483 Imperial Preceptor's lots, not one less." "Good." Xiao Hua received the cosmos sack, and his divine sense swept over it. He took out a lot and said, "Let this disciple bring this back to the Soaring Dragon Mountain range and give it to His Highness Lan. Let him establish the Shao country." "Yes, Master." Fujiwen took the Imperial Preceptor's lot and flew into the distance. After giving a few instructions, the disciple took the Imperial Preceptor's lot and flew away. Chapter 4593. Swoosh. In the distant sky, an obscure energy fluctuation flashed and rushed towards the horizon, disappearing in an instant. If he guessed correctly, it should be Linghu Piming sending a message to the immortal palace. Humph. Xiao Hua snorted coldly, inwardly thinking, 1 day in the heavens, 1 year on earth. The immortal palace is obviously inside a space-time vortex. Even if Linghu Piming's message reaches the immortal palace, as long as it breaks through the time barrier, time will immediately slow down. Before this message reaches the high cloud hall, this Xiao will have arrived. This kind of message. What use is it? After waiting for half an incense stick's time, the Fortune Gate's disciples finally came out from the Dragon Gate. When the last disciple passed through the Dragon Gate, Linghu Piming's figure flickered a few times inside the Dragon Gate as if he was bowing to Xiao Hua. Then, with a loud bang, the Dragon Gate closed from top to bottom, and the thousands of colorful carps turned into dragons and disappeared into the void. All the golden lights disappeared at the same time, and the snowflakes that resembled the jade juju flower once again fluttered down, covering everything under the cover of time. Xiao Hua stared at Yao Jishue for a moment, then waved his hand and took out the Kunlun mirror. A beam of light swept over all the Fortune Gate's disciples and sucked them into the Shenhua continent. Soon after, Xiao Hua took out an Imperial Preceptor's lot from his Qiankuan pouch. As he activated his magic power, a crackling sound rang out. The restrictions on the surface of the Imperial Preceptor's lot were all broken. As Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed at the Bai Yan, an angry howl was heard. The Bai Yan turned into an ordinary jade seal, and the Bai Yan's shadow condensed from inscriptions soared into the sky and flew to a place like lightning. Even someone as strong as Xiao Hua did not dare to be careless. He released his divine sense and hurriedly chased after the phantom. After Xiao Hua was far away, Linghu Piming walked out from the Yaotai mountain. He smiled wryly as he looked at the various countries' monarchs who were preparing to leave. Looking at the excitement on their faces, he sighed, "Granny, I'm afraid this old man will become a laughingstock in the future." However, after Linghu Piming finished sighing, he looked at the direction Xiao Hua disappeared in, and muttered to himself thoughtfully, "But if there are too many laughingstocks, and even the immortal palace becomes a laughingstock, then will a laughingstock still be a laughingstock?" Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't care about who became the laughingstock. As he urged the lightning evasion technique to chase after the state preceptor's lot, he inwardly pondered, "Today, I gained a lot on Yaotai Mountain. I'm afraid that Linghu Piming would never have thought that he would personally tell this Xiao a great secret. I obtained the Jiuzhou cauldron from Kong Hongwu's Qiankuan bag, and it was because of the Jiuzhou cauldron that I was sent to the heavenly prison. Therefore, the master behind Kong Hongwu should be the same as Sun Cheng and Sun Hao's master. They should be from Tianji Palace. Not the so-called patrol envoy." Sun Jian had returned to the immortal palace for so long, but there was still no news of him finding Sun Hao. Sun Hao had probably found out and had hidden himself long ago. Although this Xiao didn't have time to ask Bai and about Tianji Palace, as long as this Xiao arrives at the immortal palace and transmits this matter to Sun Jian, wouldn't the truth be revealed? While Xiao Hua was pondering, the state preceptor's lot had already disappeared. Xiao Hua had no choice but to once again activate another state preceptor's lot. The state preceptor's lot once again gave birth to a shadow. This shadow flew in a different direction from the previous one, so Xiao Hua had to change direction again to chase after it. In this way, after nearly 100 state preceptor's lots were used up, Xiao Hua arrived at a somewhat strange place. However, he saw that near this space, his divine sense couldn't pass through, as if it was blocked by mud. Moreover, not only was there no heaven and earth origin qi near this space, even the righteous qi couldn't be seen. When Xiao Hua flew, his figure was stretched extremely long, and the sound of the lightning evasion also began to become hoarse. Xiao Hua had previously passed through the time turbulence, so he knew that he should have arrived near another time turbulence. Although he hadn't entered the time turbulence yet, the fragments of the time rules had already begun to interfere in the nearby time turbulence. Xiao Hua stood in the space, but he wasn't in a hurry to take out the state preceptor's lot. He raised his hand and patted his forehead, and the delusion breaker Dharma eye between his eyebrows opened. Sure enough, in the delusion breaker Dharma eye, Xiao Hua's surroundings were filled with thread-like fluctuations. These fluctuations were dark in color, and as they overflowed, there was a kind of extremely faint cloud in the air. The cloud and mist not only blocked divine sense, but also could cover the delusion breaker Dharma eye. Xiao Hua flew for a while, dodging these clouds and mist, and he could see clearly again. In the distant darkness, there were hundreds of dark green little dots flickering in the darkness. These little dots were like sesame seeds, and couldn't even compare to the brilliance of ordinary fireflies. I'm afraid this is a maze. Xiao Hua's hand pinched his chin as he thought to himself. Soon after, he activated another state preceptor's lot. Whoosh! The shadow flew out, turning into a yellow inscription and rushing into one of the little dots. Xiao Hua hurriedly used the lightning escape technique to chase after it. When he got closer, Xiao Hua discovered that the dark green dot had actually turned into a whirlpool that was thousands of feet wide. This whirlpool was spinning rapidly, and it looked very slender inside. A dark fluorescent light was emitted from the whirlpool. Xiao Hua's figure fell into the vortex. That vortex didn't produce any suction force, and when Xiao Hua's figure moved, his entire figure was stretched and squashed, turning into a strange light and shadow that fell into the vortex. In Xiao Hua's eyes, the entire vortex was pitch black, and even that dark green color couldn't be seen. Only a series of memories, like light and shadow, appeared in Xiao Hua's mind, and then quickly disappeared. After flying for the time it took to eat a meal, Xiao Hua felt that he had been stretched into a line. His head was the head of the line, and his voice was the tail of the line. His entire body pierced through this vortex. A moment later, Xiao Hua saw a five-colored light appear, and it seemed that the entire vortex had reached its end. At the same time, the leg that was far away in the vortex appeared below Xiao Hua's body faster than teleportation. As for the state preceptor's lot, it had already flown to who knows where. Xiao Hua continued to move towards the five-colored clouds. When he got closer, Xiao Hua was once again shocked. Because in front of him, in the seemingly endless space, a huge vortex formed by five-colored clouds had enveloped the entire space. The colors of the vortex formed by the five-colored clouds were clear. One layer wrapped around the other, and one layer wrapped around the other. In the end, no one could tell which color was mixed with which. Other than the five colors that filled the eyes, there was only five colors. And above this vortex, there was a huge five-colored torch that filled the entire space. It was impossible to see the size of this five-colored torch with the naked eye. The five-colored vortex was spinning, and the five-colored torch was also spinning. Although it looked like it was spinning slowly, in Xiao Hua's delirium eyes, there was a feeling of heaven and earth spinning in Xiao Hua's mind. Xiao Hua didn't dare to look any longer and hurriedly looked around the torch. He saw that every time the torch rotated, there would be some multicolored light and fluctuations flying out of the torch. These multicolored light and fluctuations flew into the surrounding space and set off ripples of multicolored light. Within these ripples, the laws of time were actually pervasive. Inside this five-colored vortex should be the immortal palace. Xiao Hua thought to himself, and slightly narrowed his delirium eyes that were already swollen with pain. Xiao Hua didn't dare to rush in recklessly, and still took out another imperial preceptor's lot. Whoosh! As Xiao Hua expected, just as the imperial preceptor's lot phantom flew out, a halo immediately flew out of the five-colored vortex. This halo landed on the imperial preceptor's lot phantom, and transformed into an even smaller vortex. At the mouth of this vortex, the imperial preceptor's lot phantom fell into this vortex, and didn't appear again. Xiao Hua closed his delirium eyes. The space around Xiao Hua was similar to the void, and there was nothing special about it. Xiao Hua urged his body to fly towards the imperial preceptor's lot phantom. But after flying for 1,000 feet, Xiaohua felt the space begin to slowly vibrate, and then the space separated into layers. The layers began to move up and down, and his body also moved along with the space, leaving behind a seemingly solid phantom in each layer of space. Moreover, these phantom layers began to extend and stretch. When there were more than 1,000 of these phantoms, there was a loud bang, and a layer of space in front of Xiaohua's head gave birth to a 5-colored cloud, blocking Xiaohua's path. Layers of cobweb-like inscription chains overflowed in the cloud, and a loud sound came from the crisscrossing inscription chains. A majestic and shocking aura was also born from the inscription chains. Xiaohua understood that it was time to verify his identity here. He didn't have a token of the immortal palace, so if he wanted to pass, he could only force his way through. Therefore, Xiaohua didn't hesitate. His right hand clenched into a fist, and wisps of lightning condensed on the surface of his fist, converging into a net, and thumb-sized talismans flashed with a mysterious golden light in the lightning. As Xiaohua's right fist swung out, the space for several miles around him began to wrinkle, and layers of world's origin chi seeped out from the wrinkles, turning into fist-sized crystals that fell into the lightning. Roar! The lightning turned into a dragon, and with the power of space, it rushed into the blockade of the inscription chains with unparalleled force. The lightning was like a supreme will, and the chains were like strict order. When the will met the order, a loud bang sounded. Wherever the lightning passed, the chains were broken, and the thousands of scattered inscriptions were destroyed as soon as they touched the powerful lightning, turning into pure awe-inspiring chi. In the awe-inspiring chi, the lightning became more vigorous and constantly grew stronger. Although more and more inscription chains waved like tentacles, trying to seal the lightning, all the chains were defeated in just a moment. Seeing a hole of 1,000 feet in size appearing in the blockade of the inscription chains, Xiaohua urged his figure to calmly pass through it. Xiaohua's figure had just passed through the blockade, and in front of him was an immortal palace hidden by 5-colored clouds. A towering heavenly gate of 1,000 feet in size stood in front of Xiaohua. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could see the heavenly gate clearly, he heard a roar, "Bold thief, you actually dare to trespass the heavenly gate of southern heaven, how dare you?" Chapter 4594. Following this furious roar, an immortal general even larger than Qua Chong of the Sun Palace appeared in front of Xiaohua with 2 hammers the size of hills in his hands. Behind him, thousands of immortal soldiers flew over with weapons in their hands, wanting to surround Xiaohua. "This old man is Dao Gate's Xiaohua." Xiaohua looked at the immortal general flying over and stopped. He said indifferently, "Today, I came to the immortal palace to request an audience with immortal Emperor Gaochen. This old man has something to ask him, please return and report it to him." "Humph." The immortal general snorted and shouted, "Damned evil path, trespassing into the immortal palace is a capital offense. Hand over your life." As he spoke, the celestial general's body suddenly expanded. His mountain-like hammer streaked across the sky with a whoosh, and smashed down like a meteor. A huge gust of wind enveloped the space around Xiaohua. Xiaohua frowned slightly. With a wave of his Taoist robe, an unparalleled force came out of his Taoist robe and collided with the hammer's force. The seemingly incomparably powerful hammer had a powerful momentum. With a wave of his Taoist robe, the space shattered and the force was annihilated. Even the hammer flew out like a piece of paper. The immortal general's body tumbled a few times in the air before he managed to stabilize himself. His face, which had been filled with arrogance earlier, was now filled with astonishment and surprise. As for the thousands of immortal soldiers, they were even more at a loss. They held their weapons and didn't know whether to surround or defend. Your Grand Mist ancestor." The immortal general shouted in shock, "You actually dare to cause trouble in the immortal palace, you. This old man is Dao Gate's Xiaohua." Xiaohua looked at the immortal general who didn't even know his name and said indifferently, "Quickly report to Lingyun Palace." Xiao! Xiao Hua! The immortal general was stunned at first, then his entire body trembled. He shouted in shock, "You! Your fortune gates Xiao Hua! You! Also came to cause trouble in the immortal palace?" This old man didn't come to cause trouble in the immortal palace. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This old man has something to ask Immortal Emperor Gaochen. Quickly go and report this. Phew! The immortal general heaved a long sigh of relief. He stood up, tidied up his armor, and mustered his courage. He cupped his fists and said, "I am the Southern Heavenly Gate's Guardian General, Kuo Yu. Greetings, Daoist Xiao." N. Xiao Hua raised his hand. "Spiritual Master, please wait here for a moment. I will inform Heavenly King Fu Yu and ask him to make a decision." Kuo Yu saw Xiao Hua's amiable face and asked tentatively. Of course, Xiao Hua didn't mind. He nodded and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you." Kuo Yu was overjoyed. After bowing to Xiao Hua, he gave a few orders to the immortal soldiers and rushed into the Southern Heaven Gate. After the immortal soldiers flew back to the Southern Heaven Gate, Xiao Hua placed his hands behind his back and looked up at the lofty Southern Heaven Gate while sighing with emotion in his heart. He had never been to the Southern Heaven Gate before, but he felt a sense of familiarity when he looked at it. This was because he had seen the Southern Heaven Gate when he first came to the hidden immortal continent. However, that Southern Heaven Gate was in an illusion. He remembered that day at the Longevity Town, when Mo Jianli, Zhu Junfeng, and the others worked together to create an illusion of an immortal palace from a small vermilion gourd, which made Xiao Hua truly admire it. Now, even though Xiao Hua didn't see any heaven-suppressing martial or any golden-armored deities, the Southern Heavenly Gate that was made of jade was exactly the same as the Southern Heavenly Gate in the illusion. Back then, I only thought about how to recover my cultivation and how to step into the nascent soul stage. I never thought about seeing the real Southern Heaven Gate. However, in just a few tens of thousands of years, I have already reached the peak of cultivation and was only one step away from ascending. Now, I am standing in front of the Southern Heaven Gate to have a face-to-face conversation with the Confucian Supremacy, Immortal Emperor Gaochen. Thinking about it carefully, there is nothing more in the world than this. No matter how high one's goal is, no matter how big one's dream is, as long as one has the right direction, one can walk step by step, stand up when one falls, correct one's mistakes. As long as one has enough endurance, one will eventually reach the end of the road and see the realization of one's dream. What a pity! Although the Southern Heavenly Gate shines with golden light and red light and emits purple mist, no matter how you look at it, it still looks a little cold. The Immortal Palace is Xin's Immortal Palace, and also Xin's home, but there is no Xin at the door. Even if it is endlessly auspicious, how can it compare to the Guizhuang house in my heart? Although the Guizhuang house is small, it has parents. Although they are poor, they have children in their hearts. It is 10,000 times better than this immortal palace with its strict immortal rules. Xin. Will definitely like it. The immortal soldiers looked at Xiao Hua, who was as steady as Mount Tai, and their palms were sweating. They stared at Xiao Hua, afraid that he would explode and hurt someone. However, how could they have known that Xiao Hua's heart had already flown to the Guizhuang house? Woo. Just as the immortal soldiers were in a state of shock, waves of vast energy rushed out from all directions of the immortal palace. Multicolored clouds also flew over from all directions of the immortal palace. At the same time, waves of baleful energy surged along with the clouds and energy pillars, quickly gathering inside the Southern Heaven Gate. Thousands of cryptic fluctuations also emerged from the Southern Heaven Gate and spread to the surrounding space. As these ripples spread out, strands of strange light appeared like swimming fishes, filling the space between Xiao Hua and the Southern Heavenly Gate. Humph. Xiao Hua snorted coldly and withdrew his homesickness. His gaze fell on the light. He saw that the extremely nervous immortal soldiers at the Southern Heaven Gate had already relaxed. They looked at Xiao Hua with ridicule, as if they were looking at a fish that had walked into a trap. Boom boom. The southern gate of heaven shook like a cannon. Intense light flashed at the southern gate of heaven, and several huge inscription chains intertwined and rushed out. The inscription chains were like pythons. When the inscription chains flew out of the southern gate of heaven, they lined up in front of Xiao Hua. Dozens of immortal generals wearing armor, holding halberds, whips, sabers, and swords, revealed themselves. Hey! The immortal general at the front raised his halberd and pointed at Xiao Hua with the tip of the halberd. Ignorant demon, do you know where this is? Xiao Hua looked at this immortal general from top to bottom. His expression did not change, he was simply too lazy to answer. Who would have thought that this immortal general would not give up? He still arrogantly shouted, "This is the immortal palace. Don't you know? It's one thing for you to be a frog in a well in the hidden immortal continent. We immortal generals did not receive the immortal emperor's order to conquer, so we turned a blind eye and pretended not to know. Today, you actually dared to provoke my southern heaven gate. If I don't teach you a lesson, do you really think you are crazy?" Xiao Hua coldly swept his gaze over that immortal general. He slightly raised his hand and flicked his middle finger. A bolt of lightning appeared from Xiao Hua's hand and shot out like an arrow. Before the immortal general could finish speaking, that bolt of lightning had already landed in front of him. The immortal general was shocked. He did not care about his sharp tongue and hurriedly waved his halberd. A righteous aura mixed with a sharp aura chopped towards the bolt of lightning. That immortal general's skill was also exceptional. He used the halberd's tip to hit the bolt of lightning. However, the seemingly invisible bolt of lightning hit the halberd. Boom! A loud sound rang out. That immortal general was as if he was struck by lightning. His entire body trembled and his halberd was sent flying. Ah! The immortal general turned pale with fright and hurriedly flew back. The immortal generals beside him also moved and blocked in front of him, guarding against Xiao Hua's pursuit. Ignorant brat! Xiao Hua coldly snorted and said, "Don't make this old man angry again, otherwise." Xiao Hua did not finish speaking. He still stood proudly in front of the immortal generals with his hands behind his back. You! That immortal general stabilized himself and shouted, "Who are you?" Xiao Hua unhappily glanced at this immortal general. He was too lazy to pay attention to this immortal general. He had a good temper. If he encountered the Grand Mist Ancestor, he would have taken this immortal general's life in one blow. Quick, form the golden jade sky lock great formation. Seeing that Xiao Hua did not answer, that immortal general waved his hand and said, "Yes, General." Hearing the order, the immortal general on the left responded. He moved his body and began to form the formation. In just a moment, a great formation was arranged in the air. This great formation flashed with golden light. Lines of inscriptions that were dozens of feet thick intertwined and shuttled through each immortal general's body. Every immortal general's body in the formation emitted a clear light. This clear light was lustrous and pure like the blue sky. Every thick inscription that fell into the blue sky would reveal a lock. This lock had a mysterious inscription and a shocking aura surged out from it. What was special was that after every inscription rushed out from the edge of the Great Formation, it fell into the southern heavenly gate behind the Great Formation. The entire southern heavenly gate also transformed into a huge inscription that firmly protected the immortal palace. Bang! Seeing that the Great Formation was completed, that immortal general's confidence increased greatly. He pointed at Xiao Hua and said, "Who are you? You dare to trespass into the immortal palace? Don't you know that this is a violation of the immortal law?" Xiao Hua glanced at that immortal general. He did not want to answer, but when he thought about it, he came to find Immortal Emperor Go Chen to inquire about new information. He did not really want to attack the immortal palace. Even if he wanted to fall out with them, wouldn't that have to wait until the end? There was no need for him to rashly fall out with the immortal palace when the situation was unclear. Thus, Xiaohua replied indifferently, "This old man is Xiaohua of the Fortune Gate. Today, I came to the immortal palace to ask for an audience with immortal Emperor Go Chen. All of you, quickly go and report this." Fortune Gate. Hearing Xiaohua speak, that immortal general was stunned. He looked around and asked with some surprise, "Did this general hear wrongly? When did the hidden immortal continent have a Tao cultivator sect?" I know. At the edge of the Great Formation, a few immortal generals came to their senses and shouted, "A few days ago, the mysterious Yellow Order updated the mysterious Yellow Order, and all the people on it are disciples of the Fortune Gate. Many of my Heavenly King Palace's generals lost to the Lunar Temple. Presumably, this Tao cultivator should be someone on the mysterious Yellow Order, right? Give it as a reward, and thank you for all your support." Chapter 4595. No wonder he's so arrogant. That immortal general still hadn't reported his name. Hearing his subordinate's explanation, he sneered, "Seems like he has some tricks up his sleeve." However, the so-called profound yellow list is a hunting list for us Confucian cultivators. Being on it doesn't necessarily bring you any glory. Xiaohua didn't reply. He merely looked on as the immortal generals stomped their feet like clowns. He knew that the Tao sect had been in decline for a long time, and these immortal generals had always been arrogant. Even though he was a grand ascension stage cultivator of the Tao sect, this news might not have reached their ears. Even if this news reached their ears, they would only treat it as a rumor. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it. Not to mention, the immortal palace was different from the hidden immortal continent. The Fortune Gate's disciples purged the profound yellow list 50 years ago, and the Lunar Temple was defeated in the soaring Dragon Mountain range 50 years ago. In the eyes of these immortal generals, it was only a few dozen days ago. How could they know about his reputation on the hidden immortal continent? The immortal general was stunned by Xiaohua's methods, but when he heard that Xiaohua was a Fortune Gate disciple, he had a plan in his heart. He smiled and said, "The Lunar Temple's Sun Gu is an idiot. He snatched the immortal emperor's decree from my Heavenly King Palace and wanted to take advantage of it. Who would have thought that he would be defeated in a small soaring Dragon Mountain range? Now, I'll let Sun Gu see who is the #1 general below the Heavenly King." With that, the immortal general raised his hand and shouted, "Generals, listen to my command." Humph. Xiaohua couldn't take it anymore and snorted coldly. His voice was like a sharp needle that pierced into the immortal generals' minds. There's a saying in the mortal world that it's easy to meet the king of hell, but difficult to hide from the little ghosts. This old man just wants to meet immortal Emperor Go Chen. Why can't I even enter the southern heavenly gate after waiting for so long? This old man has already told all of you. Don't make this old man angry, or you won't be able to bear the consequences. Hee hee. The immortal general sneered, "You're just a Tao gate cultivator. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Do you think the master of the immortal palace, the supreme cultivator of the human race, is someone you can meet whenever you want? All right." When Xiaohua heard this, he was truly helpless. He really didn't know who the person who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth was. However, he understood that if he didn't use some methods, who knew what kind of unpleasant words this immortal general who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth would say. Kill! The immortal general roared, and many immortal generals attacked at the same time. Dozens of immortal generals disappeared in the clear light, and the clear light transformed into a blue sky. Hundreds of python-like inscription chains formed a huge golden lock and rushed toward Xiaohua. Behind this golden lock, the southern heavenly gate also produced a ray of light that soared into the sky. A force that could lock the heavens and earth instantly sealed the space around Xiaohua for dozens of miles. If Xiaohua was below the 9th level of elemental power, he might have activated a magic treasure or waved the wishful staff. If Xiaohua had not entered the Star Moon Palace, he might have activated the Hand of Thunder or used his Transcendence golden body. However, Xiao Hua, who had reached the peak of the 9th level of elemental power and had experienced the law of space in the meteor belt and the resplendent sea of stars in the Star-Moon Palace, and the law of time in the Ghost Plane. His use of magic had reached a point where he could do as he pleased. Seeing that the large formation had locked the space around him, he just smiled and stretched out his finger, pointing slightly in front of himself. Pa! There was a crisp sound, and a ball-shaped lightning was born in the space. Then, the lightning spread wildly. This spread was not random, but it spread along the flaws of the golden jade heaven lock array. In just the blink of an eye, the lightning shattered all these flaws, and then a wave of cracking sounds could be heard as the space in an area of a few tens of kilometers collapsed. The green heaven goldlock grand formation had been destroyed by a single point of Xiao Hua's finger. Not only that, where the lightning passed, it also cleverly triggered the counterforce of the large formation, madly rushing into the bodies of the dozens of immortal generals. Pa pa pa. There was another series of chaotic sounds, and the uncontrollable genuine qi rushed out of the immortal generals' bodies. Not only did it crash into the air, it also hit their immortal armors. While fresh blood gushed out, dozens of the weaker immortal generals withered in mid-air. The leading immortal general was even more seriously injured, and blood was seeping out of his 7 orifices. At this time, no matter how ignorant he was, he knew that he had kicked an iron plate. He looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief, opened his mouth, but could not speak for a long time, because he did not know what to say. He also did not believe that a Taoist cultivator could have such a high cultivation. This old man's name is not on the mysterious yellow proclamation. Xiao Hua looked at the immortal general and said proudly, because the mysterious yellow proclamation does not contain this old man's name. The Fortune Gate's disciples who cleaned the mysterious yellow proclamation are all this old man's disciples and juniors. This old man is the Fortune Gate's sect master. Ah! This! How is this possible? The leading immortal general was dumbfounded, and the group of injured immortal generals were also dumbfounded. Xiao Hua continued, the Lunar Temple's great general Sun Gu was personally defeated and captured by this old man's disciple, and I'm sure you Heavenly King Palace's generals don't know about this, right? That day, not only was Sun Gu captured by this old man's disciple, but also the 28 lunar mansions. The Lunar Temple knew the strength of my Fortune Gate, so they made a bet with your Heavenly King Palace's generals. Only deceived immortal generals like you would dare to come to the southern Heavenly Gate to stop this old man. Damn it, damn it. The immortal general came to his senses, and just as he was about to curse with gritted teeth, he saw a vast aura surging out from within the 5-colored light of the southern Heavenly Gate, and a voice that sounded like a huge bell rang out, Xiao Hua, you're really something. This king wants to see why the mysterious yellow proclamation does not contain your name. Following this voice, the entire immortal palace suddenly distorted, and even the light that came out of nowhere quickly dimmed. What was strange was that high up in the sky, a black and white dot of light clearly appeared. That black and white dot of light was not the sun and moon, but it was even more powerful than the sun and moon, and in an instant, the entire immortal palace's aura was more or less stolen. It was as if the entire space was set off by this black and white dot of light. Immortal Emperor Gaochen. Xiao Hua was shocked, and he raised his head to look at the black and white dot of light. That dot of light had not yet come close, but its aura had already sealed the space around Xiao Hua, and a kind of destructive force, a kind of almost supreme majesty, surged out from within that aura. This aura was so invincible, and in Xiao Hua's knowledge, only the master of the immortal palace could possess it. After a few breaths of time, the black and white dot of light had already formed 2 rays of light. One ray fell from the sky, and its light was blinding, covering the entire sky, and the other came from the ground, and it was incomparably dark, covering the entire ground. Xiao Hua suddenly came to his senses, and said in shock, no, this is not immortal Emperor Gaochen. Although this aura is supreme, the will of imperial power is faint, and it is more like the power of a king with an army. If I'm not mistaken. This should be the master of the mysterious yellow token. Sure enough, Xiaohua looked as far as his eyes could see, and behind the two rays of light, a several thousand zhang tall secondary body came whistling over. This secondary body was wearing a Confucian robe, and outside of the Confucian robe was a short armor. The inscriptions on the Confucian robe were overflowing, and the golden light on the short armor was flickering, illuminating half of the sky. Looking at the secondary body's head again, it was wearing a crown, and the auspicious aura on the crown covered the secondary body's appearance. Pictures of battles on the battlefield flashed out from the flowing auspicious aura. Under the crown was not auspicious aura, but two rays of light, which were precisely the light and darkness. These two rays of light were completely different in color, and they were like two huge dragons. Not only were they cruising around the secondary body, but they were also crashing into the surrounding space, landing on the secondary body by a fluke. Wherever the secondary body passed by, space swayed and almost collapsed. Countless majestic pillars of air rushed out from the folds of space and roared as they merged into the secondary body. Layers of dragon roars and tiger roars came from the secondary body's large strides. Heh heh. Xiaohua sneered. With a shake of his arms, Kachacha. Rumbling sounds rang out everywhere. Countless lightning-like crystal lights surged out from the void and crazily landed on Xiaohua's body. At the same time, thunderous rumbles came from Xiaohua's body. These thunderous rumbles resonated with the thunderous rumbles, and they shattered the layers of space that were previously sealed by the two rays of light. Just as the space shattered, Xiaohua also transformed into his transcendence golden body that was tens of thousands of feet tall. The golden body was surrounded by lightning, and tiny threads of lightning were like dragons swimming around. They also roared angrily. Inside the shattered space, the majestic southern heavenly gate and the stunned immortal generals all turned into broken mirrors and scattered in the darkness. In the entire space, there seemed to only be light and lightning. Roar. The person who came roared, louder than the creation of the world, and the light curtain of the entire space shone brightly. The person who came didn't seem to have any posture, but he suddenly raised his arm. At this time, his arm was like a mountain range that floated in the clouds in the sky. This mountain range had two colors. The light was like the mountains that were folded by the sunlight, and the darkness was like an endless abyss. Where the arm landed, the light and darkness fell into the clouds that previously covered the sky. The entire space was suddenly sealed, and the light covered from top to bottom, and the darkness rolled from bottom to top. In the bright clouds, chains of inscriptions entangled and whipped down, and each inscription on each chain gave birth to a different chanting sound. This sound was sonorous and powerful, mighty and domineering, and an unparalleled majesty in spirit fell down. At the same time, countless sounds of weapons and horses rang out like a zither, shattering the space in front of Xiaohua inch by inch. Inscriptions appeared in every inch of space, isolating the heaven and earth yuan qi. In the dark clouds, there were also chains of inscriptions, but these chains of inscriptions were different from before. They were all sawtooth, and on the sawtooth of each chain, there was a faint bloody light. Each sawtooth of each chain was also composed of many inscriptions. These inscriptions were dark in color, mixed with the color of blood. These inscriptions also gave birth to chanting sounds, but this sound was flattering, and mixed with wailing. An indescribable softness and coldness gushed out, shaking the space under Xiaohua's feet into a sticky, venom-like slurry. Streaks of heaven and earth yuan qi crystals fell into this slurry space and instantly turned into nothingness. Chapter 4596. Seeing that the entire space had been sealed and all life had been crushed, Xiaohua did not panic at all. He shouted, "Good timing." Then, Xiaohua rubbed his hands together, and streaks of lightning appeared between his hands like flowers blooming. This lightning was different from the lightning that Xiaohua had used in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Not to mention that the nine heavens divine thunder of the Taoist sect had become more powerful under the unstoppable thunderbolt technique, even the triple light amplifying thunder that the celestial had used the nine-colored hill to cultivate in the star-moon palace flashed with a shocking light. Together with the other four types of lightning, it turned into a nine-colored lightning hand in the sky. As soon as this lightning hand appeared, billions of lightning bolts appeared in the sky. These lightning bolts were sharper than billions of flying swords. They fell into the light and dark clouds, piercing into the inscription chains and inscription teeth. Countless thunderous sounds covered everything in the space. The so-called sounds of pressure and desire all turned into sounds of decadence. The righteousness, majesty, and justice of the lightning enveloped the entire space. Whoosh! The lightning hand fell, and the inscription chains in the light clouds were torn apart. Sections of the chains burst in the lightning bolts, and the inscription teeth in the dark clouds were destroyed. The slurry space and the blood-colored inscriptions were instantly destroyed under the absolute power of life and death. Cracks appeared in the void instead. Ah! The person was slightly stunned and said in surprise, "You are actually so powerful. Who are you? Are all the people in the immortal palace nameless?" Xiao Hua asked faintly as he activated his Dharma power and blocked the two-colored light with his lightning technique. Haha! The person laughed and also activated his true chi. The light and dark clouds tried their best to destroy the lightning hand. He said, "I am the master of the Tai Ching Palace. I really didn't expect that I would be able to meet a Taoist sect cultivator that I can fight for in my lifetime. Come, let me experience your Taoist sect techniques." As he spoke, there was a loud bang. Xiao Hua's lightning hand shattered, turning into tens of thousands of lightning fragments that scattered down. The light and dark clouds that sealed the world were also torn apart by the power of life and death. The entire space was restored to its previous light, and in the distance, the majestic celestial palace was revealed once more. Hearing the person call himself the master of the Tai Ching Palace, Xiao Hua sneered. He waved his finger, and a bolt of lightning like a sword pierced through the sky towards the master of the Tai Ching Palace. He shouted, "Who's afraid of you? I'll fight you for 300 rounds. Good. Good. Good." The palace master of the Tai Ching Palace called out 3 times in a row. His arm that was like a mountain waved again. As the clouds of light and darkness were activated, layer upon layer of mountains and seas of books condensed. Not only did they block Xiao Hua's sword of lightning, they even crossed the void and surged towards Xiao Hua. In just half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua had already fought with the Grand Purity Palace's master several times. One of them was a newly ascended Mahayana Taoist, while the other was a Confucian cultivator who had been cultivating for many years. The other had a variety of Taoist magic arts, while the other was a Confucian cultivator who had stacked his methods. The other had the unparalleled power of thunder, while the other had the black-yellow vital qi, which was unrivaled in the world. The two of them really fought until the sky fell and the earth cracked, and the void shattered. Not only were the spatial hurricanes raging, but the chi of heaven and earth and the Great Spirit were also in chaos. Even in the shattered space, there was an uneven force of space that could destroy any mountain in the world. Looking at the southern heavenly gate, which was originally hidden in the light, it was now shaking greatly. The shadow of light folded and shattered several times. In the end, it barely managed to stand tall in the wild wind. The general of the Heavenly King Palace who rashly challenged Xiao Hua had already lost his soul. He hurriedly commanded his subordinates to activate their true chi and rushed over to activate the Immortal Palace's defensive formation with the other guards. They did their best to resist the aftermath of the fight between the two supreme cultivators. In another half a cup of tea's time, the aftermath of the fight between Xiao Hua and the master of the Tai Ching Palace had already passed through the southern heavenly gate and rushed towards the Immortal Palace. Inside the Immortal Palace, many defensive formations had already been activated. Countless clouds surged. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of immortal soldiers and immortal generals flew over from all directions. They either activated the defensive formations or set up defenses to prevent enemies from attacking the immortal palace. For a time, the immortal soldiers and immortal generals near the southern heavenly gate panicked. Not good, someone is charging into the immortal palace. Quick, quick, the four great families are attacking the immortal palace. No, it's the Taoist cultivators causing havoc in the heavenly palace. The immortal soldiers and immortal generals who had not been involved in war for a long time immediately exposed the drawbacks of their comfort. Although they were also setting up defenses and responding, some rumors had already begun to irresponsibly spread. Whether it was intentional or unintentional, they had long concealed the truth of the matter. The originally calm immortal palace actually began to become chaotic. Starting from the southern heavenly gate, it quickly spread to other places. Damn it! Sun Jian, who had just patrolled the flower medicine palace, was greatly alarmed when he heard the news. He didn't have time to check if immortal Emperor Gaochen was in the flower medicine palace. He cursed in a low voice and ordered an immortal soldier to land in front of the flower medicine palace to report the news. He himself waved his three-pointed, double-edged saber and flew towards the southern heavenly gate with a group of Sun Palace soldiers. Sun Jian had only flown for a short while when another immortal soldier flew over with a message. Sun Jian carefully inquired and his face turned ashen. There was no other reason. There were only a few cultivators in the world who could fight evenly with the master of the Tai Ching Palace. And the only one who dared to attack the immortal palace was probably Xiao Hua alone. This is bad, this is bad. At this moment, Sun Jian was also somewhat alarmed. He stood in midair and frowned as he thought to himself, after all, Master Xiao attacked the immortal palace because of the immortal palace's attack on the soaring Dragon Mountain range. This is all my fault. I promised Master Xiao that I would mediate between them, but... Thinking of this, Sun Jian's frown loosened, and his face became resolute. Since this is caused by me, I can't back down. I'd better hurry to the southern heavenly gate and apologize to Master Xiao. Master Xiao hasn't entered the southern heavenly gate yet. Even if he violates the immortal palace's laws, I'll take responsibility for it. Thinking of this, Sun Jian urged his body to rush towards the southern heavenly gate. At this moment, the immortal soldier beside Sun Jian saw that Sun Jian was hesitating and hurriedly said, "General, you're new here and don't seem to be familiar with the immortal palace's rules. Although the Sun Palace is in charge of the immortal palace's safety, our responsibility lies within the immortal palace. As long as the Taoist sect's Mahayana hasn't attacked the southern heavenly gate, it's not our responsibility. If you force yourself to go now, you'll be inviting trouble. Not only will you bring disaster to the Sun Palace, but you'll also arouse the dissatisfaction of the Heavenly King Palace." "Shut up!" Sun Jian said angrily. At this point, the Sun Palace and the Heavenly King Palace are already interdependent. Do you think Master Xiao just wants to see if the southern heavenly gate is sturdy? When Master Xiao kills his way into the southern heavenly gate, it'll be too late for us to stop him. But the immortal soldier argued, "General, the Taoist sect's Mahayana is fighting with the master of the Tai Ching Palace. Even if you want to, you're powerless. In my opinion, you might as well inform the immortal emperor, or the master of the Jade Pure Palace and the master of the Supreme Pure Palace." This. Hearing the immortal soldier's words, Sun Jian hesitated for a moment. He didn't want to use reporting as an excuse to shirk responsibility, but he was thinking about Xiao Hua's safety. After all, Xiao Hua was fighting with the master of the Supreme Pure Palace. Even if he didn't report to the immortal emperor, the masters of the Jade Pure Palace and the Supreme Pure Palace, they would definitely be attracted by the fight between the two. These three were all literary stars of the immortal palace. If the four of them attacked, Xiao Hua would definitely be defeated. Sun Jian paused for a moment, then turned his head and said, "Go, quickly inform the master of the literature palace." Yes. General. The immortal soldier next to him was startled, then replied in a low voice, General, aren't we going to inform the other masters of the two pure palaces? Sun Jian glanced at the flickering light in the distance and replied, the master of the supreme pure palace is not in the immortal palace. We don't need to inform the master of the jade pure palace. Just inform the master of the literature palace and let him assist the master of the two pure palaces. With that, Sun Jian urged his body to move, not daring to delay any longer. He wanted to stop Xiaohua from breaking through the southern heavenly gate before immortal Emperor Gaochen and the others arrived. Although Sun Jian's mind was like lightning, his body was still too slow. Before he could fly near the southern heavenly gate, he heard a majestic voice from above the immortal palace, audacious Xiaohua, you actually dare to break through the southern heavenly gate of my immortal palace. What crime do you dare to commit? Wasn't this the familiar voice of the master of the Jade Pure Palace? Looking at the faint purple clouds covering the sky above the immortal palace, Sun Jian turned pale with fright. He couldn't help but grit his teeth and said, damn it, which damned bootlicker actually alarmed the master of the Jade Pure Palace? At this moment, Sun Jian somewhat understood that there was definitely someone stirring up trouble in the middle. Even if Xiaohua wanted to break through the southern heavenly gate, the immortal generals or heavenly kings of the Heavenly King Palace who were guarding the gate would definitely inform immortal Emperor Gaochen first. And he was responsible for the defense of the immortal palace, so he would definitely know about this before the immortal emperor did. And at this moment, the immortal emperor was clearly in the Medicine Flower Palace, waiting for him to wake up and disturb him. How could the master of the Supreme Pure Palace be one step ahead of Xiaohua? And the master of the Jade Pure Palace almost never asked about the matters of the Immortal Palace. If someone didn't specifically inform him today, how could he come out of the Jade Pure Palace? Thinking about how he had been tracking down Sun Hao's master ever since he returned to the Immortal Palace, all the clues were vague and he couldn't find the source at all. Sun Jian couldn't help but sigh. Previously, when Chu entered the Literature Star Palace, Sun Jian earnestly asked the immortal emperor and Wen Chu to temporarily keep this a secret. Once when Chu entered the Literature Star Palace, she would shut the door and refuse all visitors to buy time for him to track down the real culprit. And now that Xiaohua had caused a ruckus in the Immortal Palace, Sun Jian himself was clear that he probably wouldn't have the chance to find the real culprit who killed the Black Ruins mountain garrison and take revenge for them. Chapter 4597. Before Sun Wu could reach the southern heavenly gate, Sun Jian heard the arrogant voice of the heavenly being outside the southern heavenly gate, old man, I didn't accompany fellow Taoist Xiao to the immortal palace to break through your southern heavenly gate. Fellow Taoist Xiao has something to ask your immortal emperor. Fellow Taoist. The lord of the Jade Pure Palace's tone was extremely dignified. Although he sounded amiable, no one dared to underestimate him. Since we're here, how can we end things without a fight? Ha! The celestial being laughed even louder. I understand. Fellow Taoist Xiao is a Taoist cultivator, and you are Confucian cultivators. If you don't measure fellow Taoist Xiao's strength, I'm afraid you won't feel at ease. Moreover, even if fellow Taoist Xiao comes to the Immortal Palace and has no ill intentions, you all still have to give him a good beating to suppress his arrogance and protect your Immortal Palace's face. There's no point in saying more. The Lord of the Jade Pure Palace's voice was still indifferent. Following that, the rumbling of stars and the rumbling of lightning could be heard. The entire Immortal Palace began to shake violently again, and countless lights and shadows appeared around Sun Jian. Go! Sun Jian did not dare to delay. He raised his hand and took out his token, throwing it to the immortal general beside him. Take my order and inform all the immortal soldiers and immortal generals in the palace to come out and set up defenses. Yes, General. The immortal general did not dare to delay. He took the token and left. You all wait. Sun Jian looked around and ordered, set up defenses around the southern heavenly gate. You must not let the southern heavenly gate collapse. Do not let the immortal palace's defensive array collapse. Yes, General. The immortal soldiers and immortal generals received the order and hurriedly left. After Sun Jian finished giving orders, he looked up at the rolling purple clouds above the immortal palace. Sun Jian felt bitter. He knew that he could not participate in such a battle, but he had no other choice. Moving his body, Sun Jian flew toward the southern heaven gate without hesitation. When Sun Jian reached the southern heavenly gate, the entire southern heavenly gate was already filled with immortal soldiers and immortal generals. The space outside the southern heavenly gate was in chaos. Lightning, clouds, purple clouds, and sword energy were everywhere. The space shattered and shattered again. The power of space was like a giant hand rubbing it, destroying it over and over again. The immortal palace's immortal generals and immortal generals and immortal generals and immortals were all panicked. They used Qi to protect the southern heavenly gate, and at the same time, they used a clear technique to look outside. And looked outside the gate with disbelief. Their eyes art. Immortal eyes looked and immortal generals and immortal general and immortal generals and immortals and immortals and immortal gate. Immortal gate and immortal. Immortal gate, immortal eyes and immortal gate was, generals and immortal general and immortal gate was. Immortal Emperor Go Chen was the master of Immortal Palace, the most powerful character in the world in the eyes of these soldiers. The masters of the four clans might not be weaker than Immortal Emperor Go Chen, but in the eyes of these soldiers, there was a huge gap. The only one who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Immortal Emperor Go Chen was the master of the Three Purities Palace. The masters of the Three Purities Palace usually did not show their faces. Most of the immortal soldiers and generals had never seen their faces, and some of them had never even seen the masters of the Three Purities Palace. However, this didn't stop the master of the Three Purities Palace from becoming the pride of the Immortal Palace. However, the fierce battle that had just taken place outside the southern heavenly gate had completely overturned their expectations. None of them had thought that there would be a grand ascension stage human among the Taoist cultivators who had always been hunted and trampled on, who could fight the master of the Three Purities Palace. It was only now that more immortal soldiers and immortal generals heard about Xiaohua, the profound yellow list, and the fortune gate from others. Everyone. Sun Jian saw that everyone was panicking and said, "The battle outside the southern heavenly gate is exciting, but our duty is to protect the immortal palace. Everyone, please focus your energy on the defensive formation, and not." Unfortunately, before Sun Jian could finish, an immortal general said coldly, "General Sun, this is the southern heavenly gate, not the southern heavenly gate. Similarly, this is the territory of the Heavenly King Palace, not your Sun Palace. If you were perfected Lord Qingyuan, I would have to bow my head and listen to your orders. You're just the new Sun Palace General. Do you really think you're perfected Lord Qingyuan?" "That's right." The other immortal general also withdrew the clear sight light, and the shock on his face faded a little. He glanced at Sun Jian indifferently and echoed, "This is the Immortal Palace, a place with rules, not the remote village you are in. Nothing can be accomplished without rules, do you know that? You should take care of your Sun Palace and don't stretch your hands too far." "Ahem." The general of the Heavenly King Palace who was defeated by Xiaohua coughed and said, "What are you all talking about? General Sun Cho has good intentions. How can I not cooperate with the Heavenly King Palace's subordinates? General Sun came to help because he was thinking about the Heavenly King Palace. It's better than those bastards from the Lunar Temple who are always scheming against us, right?" "Yes, yes." The immortal generals smiled and said, "This general is just reminding General Sun to be careful. After all, he's new here and doesn't know the rules of the Immortal Palace. It's fine if we're here, but if he meets those bastards from the Lunar Temple, won't he still suffer a great loss?" If it was before, Sun Jian might have scolded them. However, he had changed his appearance recently and became the great general of the Sun Palace. He saw the other side of the immortal palace with his other eye. Previously, he was the relative of the immortal emperor. Everyone flattered, followed, and respected him. No one dared to say anything against him. He thought that the entire immortal palace was harmonious. Even if it was a bit gloomy, it was just a passing cloud in the wind. But now, his other eye could see the undercurrents of the immortal palace better than his third eye. It allowed him to see the strangeness in people's hearts. This gave this outstanding commander a chance to sharpen himself. It could be said that the current Sun Jian was no longer the Sun Jian from before. His gains in this period of time were comparable to the gains of the heaven prison for tens of thousands of years. Therefore, Sun Jian smiled faintly and cupped his hands at the immortal generals. This one has said too much. This one thanks everyone for the reminder. However, this one also wants to remind everyone that you are all immortal generals of the immortal palace. You have the duty to protect the immortal palace. No matter where you are, you can't forget your duty. Duty has no limits. After saying this, Sun Jian ignored the shock and disdain of the immortal generals and rushed towards the immortal palace's defensive formation. Sun Cho, what are you doing? The immortal general of the Heaven King Palace was shocked and raised his hand to stop him. Do you want to die? Unfortunately, the immortal general's strength was much weaker than Sun Jian's. He had just stretched out his arm when a powerful force stopped him. You. Seeing Sun Jian's cultivation, the immortal general was even more shocked. Because like the other immortal generals, he naturally thought that the so-called Sun Cho was only at the high 6th level of essence energy or the low 7th level of essence energy. He didn't know that Sun Jian's strength had already surpassed the heavenly kings. Sun Jian didn't have the time to care about the immortal generals and rushed into the immortal palace's defensive formation. Whoosh! Sun Jian felt the clouds in front of him sway and waves of bone-chilling wind blew over. The defensive armor on his body produced multicolored light that wanted to protect Sun Jian. Unfortunately, the multicolored light just surged out. Pa pa pa. There was a series of crisp sounds and the multicolored light was blown into pieces. The inscriptions on the armor were shattered in the wind. Then, ka ka ka. There was another series of cracking sounds. The defensive armor actually cracked. Roar. Sun Jian didn't dare to be slow. He let out a long roar and in the shattered void, some righteous chi forcefully descended. Sun Jian also activated his child body. Rays of multicolored light surged and turned into 1,000 feet in size. Then, Sun Jian waved his three-pointed, double-edged sword and used the eye-clear technique to take a look. Then, he flew towards the lightning hand. At this moment, the celestial being was fighting with the Jade Pure Palace Master. When the celestial being activated the celestial being's white bone, he needed Xiao Hua's essence energy. When he listened to the discussion in the Star Moon Palace, he obtained the cultivation technique. When he was refining the 10,000 extinguishing celestial dipper, he also integrated the celestial being's white bone into his body. At this moment, he no longer needed Xiao Hua's essence energy to activate the white bone at will. However, the vast consciousness in the white bone still couldn't be controlled by him. Fortunately, this consciousness was the same as the heavenly phoenix consciousness in Feng Wu's body. If it wasn't at a critical moment, it would also be in a deep sleep and wouldn't interfere. Therefore, when the celestial being activated his 3 heads and 6 arms, the triple radiant lightning on his 6 arms struck down like lightning. He really looked like an ancient thunder god. Looking at the Jade Pure Palace Master again, he had a horsetail whisk in his hand and a purple cloud above his head. As he waved the horsetail whisk, thousands of purple cloud strands appeared out of thin air. Each strand of cloud strands had the power to overturn rivers and seas, and each strand of light could tear space apart. Although the Jade Pure Palace Master wasn't wearing any armor and was only wearing an emperor's outfit, the purple cloud above his head sent down thousands of layers of purple clouds to protect him. No matter how arrogant the celestial being's triple radiant lightning was, when it struck the purple clouds, it only shook for a moment before disappearing without a trace. It's indeed refreshing. The celestial being's roar reverberated in the distance. 3 pillars of light of different colors shot out from his 3 heads. Where the pillars of light landed, the void shattered and the purple clouds melted. It was quite powerful. However, when the 3 pillars of light landed on the purple cloud above the Jade Pure Palace Master's head, although the purple cloud shook rapidly, the pillars of light couldn't penetrate it. Boom, boom. The celestial being was somewhat enraged. Lightning reappeared on his 6 arms. The lightning was fiercer than a flood dragon, and the lightning was fiercer than a sharp sword. The purple clouds under the Jade Pure Palace Master's horsetail whisk couldn't withstand the lightning's ravaging and shattered. A bright purple light gradually appeared on the horsetail whisk, and layers of inscriptions swam on it like tadpoles. Give it a tip, and thank you for all forms of support. Although Sun Jian's face was unfamiliar, he immediately understood. He smiled and asked, stopping the magic power in his hand. What about Immortal Emperor Go Chen? Kuo Yu has been reporting for so long, but he still hasn't shown his face. Sun Jian bowed and said, Dao Master, this matter is all Junior's fault. Junior apologizes to Senior here, and I hope that Senior will not make things worse. Oh. You. What did you do wrong? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned, and asked curiously, this old man only came to the Immortal Palace to ask the Immortal Emperor a question. Sun Jian was also taken aback, but he quickly said respectfully, I know I'm in the wrong. Although I have already reported to the Immortal Emperor and asked His Majesty to give up the expedition, the decree of the expedition to the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range has not been reviewed by the Immortal Emperor. So, if Senior wants to ask the Immortal Emperor for an explanation, then Junior will bear all responsibility. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, when he saw Sun Jian's anxious expression, he was moved by his sincerity, and said with a smile, this matter has nothing to do with you. The matter of the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range has already passed. This old man came to ask the Immortal Emperor about another matter. Another matter? Sun Jian was puzzled, and asked curiously, Senior, what other matter is worthy of such a large mobilization? What do you mean by a large mobilization? Xiao Hua sneered, this old man came alone and followed the etiquette to wait outside the southern heavenly gate. Who would have thought that the master of the Xianhuang proclamation would shamelessly come out and ask for a beating? And that Jade Pure Palace master even wanted to win with numbers. Humph. The master of the Tai Ching Palace's expression changed, and a loud rumbling sound came from his body. Boom. At this moment, in the distant Immortal Palace, there was a huge tremor, and rays of light rushed over like a torrential river. The rays of light carried endless majesty. Wherever the rays of light passed, the shattered void healed, and the chaotic order of heaven and earth instantly became orderly. Even the awe-inspiring energy and heaven and earth origin energy were orderly. Good. Seeing that the master of the Tai Ching Palace had put away his horsetail whisk, the celestial also felt bored. He looked around and shouted, as expected of the master of the Immortal Palace, this one admires you. Roar. Wherever the rays of light passed, the roar of a dragon resounded in the sky. Ga. Along with the dragon's roar, the sound of a phoenix's cry also emerged. Between the auspicious appearance of a dragon and a phoenix, thousands of auspicious signs were born in the space. The Immortal Palace that had previously been beaten into a shadow of light actually became full at this moment, and it once again stood tall with an imposing aura. The light and shadow were peaceful, and the sound of music and metal and stone also came. At the end of the auspicious rays of light, an emperor wearing a sun and moon imperial robe and a crown of heaven and earth appeared. This emperor's figure was only 1,000 zhang tall, but in the vicinity of this 1,000 zhang, countless inscriptions surged like flood dragons, and a world-suppressing aura was emitted from this emperor's figure. The rays of light came from the golden throne under the emperor. Layers of golden light fell into the sky, and each wave of rays of light was higher than the last, mightily rushing into the space. Xiaohua stood there and looked at the immortal emperor that was much smaller than his golden body, and his eyes narrowed. This emperor's aura condensed together with the golden throne like a monolith. A kind of heavenly Tao-like majesty rushed out from the rays of light, and that monolith's dignified aura caused Xiaohua's heart to thump loudly. This immortal emperor is the center of the fate of Confucian cultivators, and the golden throne represents the highest imperial power of Confucian cultivators in the world. Who knows how many generations, how many supreme beings have sat on it. This kind of accumulation is far from what this Xiao can compare to. Seeing immortal Emperor Gaochen come out, Sun Jian wanted to move over, but looking at Xiaohua and the master of Tai Qing Palace, he hesitated. Seeing Sun Jian like this, Xiaohua's heart moved, and he transmitted a message, Sun Jian, you still haven't found the mastermind behind Sun Hao. Sun Jian turned his head somewhat absent-mindedly and said, I'm afraid I can't. Previously, I had some clues, but they were inextricably linked, and I couldn't find the source. Today, this junior must return to his original appearance. Don't worry. Xiaohua smiled and said, this old man just found out that Sun Hao's master might be related to the Heaven and Earth sect, which is the so-called Tianji Hall. However, this old man doesn't know who exactly it is. Oh. Sun Jian was stunned, and his absent-minded expression immediately disappeared. A trace of clarity appeared in his eyes, and it was replaced by an expression of sudden realization. I see. This junior understands now. Sun Jian transmitted a message, this guy hid too deeply. This junior has some clues here, but it seems that they have nothing to do with him. If senior didn't remind me, this junior definitely wouldn't have thought of it. However, since senior said so, most of the clues have a suitable conclusion. At this point, Sun Jian bowed to the master of Tai Qing Palace and said, Master of Tai Qing Palace, this is a misunderstanding. Daoist Master Xiao came to the Immortal Palace to explain something to His Majesty the Immortal Emperor. Southern Heavenly Gate's Guardian General Kuai Yu is a general of the Heavenly King Palace. According to this junior's knowledge, he is also a person of the Xianhuang order. Daoist Master Xiao came to my Immortal Palace, and he didn't report such important news to the Immortal Emperor, but overstepped his authority to report to the Master of Tai Qing Palace. This crime is punishable by death. Damn it, do you think you are perfected Lord Qingyuan? The Master of Tai Qing Palace was a bit anxious, and the Xianhuang order that had stopped was about to fall. Even if this junior isn't perfected Lord Qingyuan, this junior is still a general of the Sun Palace. Even if Kuai Yu can't find the Immortal Emperor in the Lingyun Palace, he still has to report this matter to this general. Sun Jian was not moved at all, and replied indifferently, if the Master of Tai Qing Palace doesn't want Kuai Yu to die, then please wait for the Immortal Emperor's decree. With that, Sun Jian turned and left, no longer paying attention to the Master of Tai Qing Palace. Damn it! The Master of Tai Qing Palace was furious. No one in this Immortal Palace has ever contradicted this king. Who do you think you are? Haha! Xiaohua laughed loudly. With a swing of his Daoist robe, not only did he shatter the Immortal Emperor's multicolored light, but he also extinguished the ray of light that the Master of Tai Qing Palace had shot towards Sun Jian. He laughed and said, there wasn't one in the past, but it doesn't mean that there won't be one in the future. Even if you are a green onion, you have the right. How dare you challenge the self-proclaimed master? Boom! The Master of Tai Qing Palace was ashamed and angry. He raised his hand and pointed at the Xianhuang order. The entire Xianhuang order suddenly expanded, and two different kinds of light and darkness surged out, destroying the clear light and multicolored light of the Immortal Emperor and falling towards Xiaohua. Humph! Xiaohua coldly snorted and shouted, the imperial weapon of a Confucian cultivator. Is only SOSO, and you dare to be arrogant in front of my Tao sect? With that, Xiao Hua raised his hand and waved, and a golden light rushed out. The Ting Jiao shears transformed into a golden dragon and pounced on the Xianhuang order. The dragon's tail swept, tearing the space apart, and the golden light entered the Xianhuang order in the blink of an eye. Hiss. The master of Tai Qing Palace was shocked and shouted, Ting Jiao shears. You. How can you have the Ting Jiao shears? Xiao Hua was also stunned and looked at the master of Tai Qing Palace in confusion. He didn't understand how the master of Tai Qing Palace knew about the Ting Jiao shears, but he still coldly said, You have the Xianhuang order, why can't I have the Ting Jiao shears? Shua. With a tearing sound, the Ting Jiao shears cut through the Xianhuang order. Thousands of inscriptions appeared on the Xianhuang order, and each of these inscriptions looked like a Confucian cultivator and a general. The Ting Jiao shears were sharp and cut the inscriptions in half, but when it landed on the Xianhuang order, it was useless. Oh, so it's only half. The master of Tai Qing Palace finally saw it clearly and seemed to be relieved. He smiled and said, If you had the complete Ting Jiao shears, this king might have lost to you. However, if you want to rely on this piece of trash to win against this king, then you must be dreaming, give it a reward, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4599. Fellow cultivator, don't worry, I'll help you. At this moment, he saw a five-colored cloud appear at the peak of the celestial palace. This cloud contained endless starlight, and a similarly vast origin energy swept over. Wasn't it Wen Chu who came on the cloud? Damn it! Supreme Purity Palace Master saw Wen Chu flying over and cursed, this Supreme Purity Palace Master didn't come out earlier or later, why did he come out now? This Literature Palace Master has the mysteries of the five energies and is studying the riddle of Wen Chu. He's a strong opponent right now. This Xiao Hua and Bai Gu from earlier will require an immortal emperor to personally take them down. At this time, Sun Jian had already teleported in front of immortal Emperor Go Chen. The emperor's face was hidden behind the crown, so one couldn't see his expression. However, just by looking at the several hundred strands of fate swimming around him, one could tell that the emperor was furious. Immortal Emperor Gaochen stood up from his golden throne after seeing the master of the Literature Star Palace. His avatar suddenly expanded as if he wanted to personally take action. Your Majesty! Sun Jian shouted, You're a supreme, how can you personally face the enemy? I'm not talented enough, but I'm here to ask for permission to lead my troops to kill Xiao Hua. Oh! The immortal emperor was obviously stunned. He looked at Sun Jian in confusion, then at Xiao Hua and Wen Chu, who had turned into a ray of light and descended. Your Majesty! Sun Jian didn't have time to send a message and shouted, Your Majesty, please trust me. As long as you're willing to let me command your troops, I'll be able to get to the bottom of this. Immortal Emperor Go Chen didn't know what Sun Jian meant, but when he heard the words, get to the bottom of this, he understood. Right when he was about to say something, another explosion came from the palace. Immortal Emperor Go Chen's golden throne also emitted a golden light. This golden light flew into the palace and merged with the golden light from the palace. Whoosh! The golden light disappeared and another golden throne appeared next to Immortal Emperor Go Chen. It was the East Sea Empress in her palace robe. She sat there with great elegance. However, at this moment, the East Sea Empress' appearance was also obscured by the radiance and could not be seen. Immortal Emperor Go Chen hesitated for a moment when he saw the Eastern Sea Empress. He then sat down and nodded. You will be in charge of the Immortal Palace's soldiers. Thank you, Your Majesty. Sun Jian was overjoyed. Where are Heavenly King Qin Yu and Heavenly King Fu Yu? The two heavenly monarchs exchanged a perplexed glance upon hearing this. How could they possibly be a match for a Grand Ascension stage human being? However, since Sun Jian personally called them out and they received the order from immortal Emperor Go Chen, the two of them didn't dare to be negligent. They braced themselves and flew out to answer, "We are here." Heavenly Kings. Sun Jian's expression did not change. He raised his hand and pointed at Xiaohua. Xiaohua is a Taoist Mahayana. Although he has cultivated a transcendence golden body, his punches and kicks are inferior. Activate your sub-bodies and attack his lower body. This. Heavenly King Qin Yu and Heavenly King Fu Yu gritted their teeth and hesitated for a moment before cupping their fists. We understand. Where are the palace guards of the Pupil Lu Palace, Hua Lu Palace, Xingyue Palace, Star Sun Palace, and Pure Abode Palace? Sun Jian randomly assigned the soldiers to attack. Finally, he pondered for a moment before asking, "Where is the Palace Lord of the Divination Hall?" Even immortal Emperor Go Chen was puzzled by Sun Jian's decision to send the Palace Lord of the Divination Hall, let alone Xie Xian himself. However, since he had given Sun Jian the authority to dispatch the soldiers, he couldn't stop him. The Palace Lord of the Divination Hall, Xie Xian, flew out from the shadows and said without batting an eyelid, "I am here." "What orders do you have for me, General Sun?" "Palace Lord Xie." Sun Jian didn't issue any orders. Instead, he whispered a few words to Xie Xian. Xie Xian nodded slightly. After Sun Jian finished speaking, Xie Xian actually said, "I understand. Leave this matter to me." With that, Xie Xian's figure flickered. The clouds nearby rippled and he disappeared. Generals. Sun Jian cupped his fists and said, "The dignity of the immortal palace will be determined in this battle. I ask all of you to work together and capture the traitor of the Taoism in front of His Majesty." Yes. The generals saw that Xie Xian had disappeared and naturally knew that he was the real killer. They were reassured and answered in unison. Then, Sun Jian waved his three-pointed, double-edged saber and led the immortal generals toward Xiaohua on auspicious clouds. "Your Majesty." The East Sea Empress was puzzled and asked in a low voice, "What is General Sun doing? Is he going to fight the Grand Ascension stage human?" "Yes, I'm afraid so." Immortal Emperor Go Chen nodded and looked outside the southern heavenly gate. At this time, the heavenly light of the immortal palace was actually a bit red. Under this red light, the palace that had stood for billions of years looked a bit desolate. The auspicious auras around the immortal emperor and the blinding golden light from the golden throne couldn't hide the faded color of the palace. Amidst the many clear lights, tens of thousands of immortal generals held their weapons and nervously looked at the palace. Outside of the southern heavenly gate, in the almost boundless space, Xiaohua proudly stood there. The soaring dragon scissors had returned from the sky. Its golden light dimmed and its cries were miserable. It clearly couldn't do anything. Wen Chu was still a distance away from Xiaohua when he landed. Due to Xiaohua's message, he didn't approach and only cautiously looked around. As for the Grand Purity Palace Master, he had a sneer on his face. He raised his hand and pointed. The profound yellow notice that was even more violent than an army of thousands of soldiers and horses had expanded to 1,000 miles in size and fell toward Xiaohua again. Under the profound yellow notice, all of the worldly origin energy and righteous energy were restrictions. All of the power of space fell into it as if it fell into a swamp. Even Xiaohua's divine intent couldn't break through the suppression of the profound yellow notice. He. Xiaohua looked at the descending profound yellow notice and sneered. He shouted, "Poor Hong Meng. That day, he was probably suppressed by you all under such a pincer attack, right? However, today, I'm afraid you all won't be able to have any more wishful thinking." With that, Xiaohua suddenly activated the fury of thunder. The lightning around Xiaohua's body suddenly became sharp and gave birth to a punishment force several times stronger than before. Xiaohua then opened his mouth again. Wu! The six-colored spirit fire turned into a thunderbolt and shot out. Not only that, Xiaohua raised his left hand and grabbed the void. Countless lightning bolts condensed into the shadow of the immortal slaying platform. The six-colored spirit fire swam around the edge of the immortal slaying platform. Slash! Xiaohua roared again, and the immortal slaying platform in his hand turned into 100 miles in size and slammed into the profound yellow notice. At the same time, with Xiaohua's roar, the sound of thunder was also activated. The sound came later but arrived first, hitting the profound yellow notice like a storm. Pa pa pa. Countless inscriptions on the armor were destroyed by the sound of thunder, and the light of the 1,000-mile profound yellow notice suddenly dimmed by 30%. Just as the master of the Tai Ching Palace was surprised, there was a loud bang. The shadow of the immortal slaying stage crashed into the mysterious yellow proclamation, hitting where the light and darkness were. Layers of lightning punishment light that were more turbulent than stormy waves pounced on the surface of the mysterious yellow proclamation. The entire profound yellow notice trembled rapidly, and the inscriptions on the armor that hadn't been destroyed before were destroyed by the lightning punishment light again. The previously arrogant light faded and the darkness retreated. A seemingly simple and unadorned list with strange runes finally revealed its true form. Damn it! The Grand Purity Palace Master cursed and hurriedly waved his hands. The two clouds of light and darkness rushed toward the profound yellow notice. At this time, Xiaohua's figure moved again. Under the light and shadow, he rushed to the front of the profound yellow notice faster than teleportation. Xiaohua raised his hand and waved. Break! With a roar, the wishful steel staff was raised and hit the profound yellow notice with a bang. How strong was Xiaohua? How heavy was the wishful steel staff? After the profound yellow notice was destroyed by the fury of thunder, it had revealed its true form. Under the heavy blow of the initial force of the world, the original form fell like broken cotton. Damn it! The Grand Purity Palace Master's heart felt like it was dripping blood. He hurriedly urged the light to retract the profound yellow board, but at that moment, an extremely strange force appeared. It wanted to sever his connection with the profound yellow board. Not good. The Tai Ching Palace Master turned pale with fright as he hurriedly opened his mouth. A vast suction force transformed into sword qi that swept up a corner of the Xianhuang board. Shua! The Xianhuang board rapidly shrank and fell into the Tai Ching Palace Master's mouth. Ah! Dao! Taoist magic! Xiaohua tried to use his mind to take back the profound yellow notice, but failed. He sensed that the Grand Purity Palace Master had used a Taoist magic in the end. Because this suction force seemed to be sword qi, but it was obvious that this sword qi was somewhat different from the flying swords of Confucian cultivators. As a Taoist Mahayana realm cultivator, Xiaohua could clearly sense it. Taoist Master Xiao. Just as Xiaohua was shocked, Sun Jian had already landed in front of him with many immortal generals. He waved his three-pointed, double-edged sword and shouted, "Junior has already asked for the immortal emperor's decree. Since you accidentally broke into my immortal palace immortal domain, it can't be considered an intentional offense. Now you have two choices. One is to bow your head in front of the immortal palace master and admit your mistake, and leave the immortal palace master. The other is to take a blow from my immortal palace generals." Xiaohua looked at Sun Jian with some confusion, waiting for Sun Jian to transmit his voice. Unfortunately, Sun Jian was full of righteousness and didn't show any favoritism. However, at this moment, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and glanced at Wen Chu. He sneered at Sun Jian and said, "This old man doesn't know if you're the one who's sick or if I'm the one who's sick. This old man has fellow Taoist Wen Chu and fellow Taoist Heavenly Tao. Even if you add old man Gaochen, your immortal palace is still no match for my fortune gate. Why should this old man listen to your choice?" After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Sun Jian to speak. He coldly snorted and said, "Fellow Taoist Wen Chu, you can make your move now. Kill." After Wen Chu transmitted his voice to Xiao Hua with his mind, a mysterious smile appeared on his face. He rubbed his hands, and a five-colored hand appeared out of thin air and fell towards the Grand Purity Palace Master. Chapter 4600. Scholar Palace Master, have you thought it through? The Tai Ching Palace Master was a bit confused. He coldly looked at Wen Chu and said, "Are you going to attack this king?" "Not just him." Xiao Hua laughed loudly, "There's also this Xiao." As he spoke, Xiao Hua also rubbed his hands together. A five-colored hand of lightning attacked the Tai Ching Palace Master from another direction. Generals. Sun Jian's face turned cold. He ordered, "Attack. Kill." The immortal generals were helpless. They once again braced themselves and charged forward from all directions. Seeing Heavenly King Qin Yu and Heavenly King Fu Yu pouncing towards Xiao Hua's legs, Lu Tong Palace, Hua Lo Palace, Xingyue Palace, Xinyang Palace, Jingzhu Palace, and the other palace guards pouncing towards Xiao Hua's arms and other areas, Sun Jian roared loudly. His three-pointed, double-edged blade drew a cold light in the air and chopped towards Xiao Hua's forehead. Sun Jian had only just attacked when he saw Xiao Hua suddenly turn his head. The delusion breaker Dharma eye between his brows suddenly opened. A silver pillar of light shot out from the Dharma eye. With a boom, it shot into the void. Ah! A shocked scream came from the void. Immediately after, the Tianji Palace Master Xie Xian's figure staggered out of the void. At this moment, there was a bloody hole in Xie Xian's arm. Four-colored true qi rushed out and was healing the wound. Clearly, he was injured by Xiao Hua's delusion breaker Dharma eye. Io. Just as Xie Xian's figure appeared, Sun Jian's shocked cry came, "Tianji Palace Master, dodge." Xie Xian felt a cold wind in his face. It was Sun Jian's three-pointed, double-edged blade. He didn't have time to think about why Sun Jian called him Tianji Palace Master. His figure quickly flashed as he tried to dodge. But at this moment, the situation suddenly changed. The hand of lightning and five-colored hand that were originally falling towards the Tai Ching Palace Master suddenly changed directions and firmly covered him. The Tai Ching Palace Master was stunned. He looked at Sun Jian in confusion. The two-colored light he activated also condensed and didn't shoot out. Damn it! Seeing the space around him being sealed by the giant hand, how could Xie Xian not know that he had fallen into Sun Jian and Xiao Hua's trap? He angrily cursed. The multicolored light around his body blossomed like a scorching sun, and a boundless aura instantly rushed out from the seal of the large hand. Gotcha! Xiao Hua's hand of thunder and Wen Chu's large hand of five colors unexpectedly cracked at this time. How is that possible? The Grand Purity Palace Master was shocked as he growled, "When did Xie Xian reach the 9th grade of essence energy?" Humph. Just as Xie Xian was about to break free from Xiao Hua and Wen Chu's joint imprisonment, an incomparably dignified voice sounded from afar, "Xie Xian, we trusted you in vain, but you actually did such a despicable thing behind our backs." Gotcha. Just as Immortal Emperor Gaoqian's voice sounded, a sword cry was heard. Immediately after, a phoenix cry and dragon roar resounded. A lifelike son of heaven's sword came out from Xiao Hua's hand of thunder. At the edge of the oval sword, the silver sword light still contained 10,000 layers of sword intent. The mountains and rivers, the myriad forms of the world, and the pavilions of the sky were all inscribed chains. The 3 layers of sword intent suddenly soared into the sky and rushed towards the blue dome of heaven. So it really is with you. Immortal Emperor Gaoqian's voice was like thunder. A huge pillar of light rushed out from the golden throne like a huge dragon roaring as it pounced over. Seeing the golden pillar of light descending, Xiao Hua and Wen Chu retreated at the same time. Xie Xian obtained his freedom and hurriedly yelled, "Your Majesty, what is this? Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, the pillar of light had already descended and suppressed the space around Xia Xian. Within the golden light, Xia Xian's body stood there as if it was frozen. On his face, the Son of Heaven's sword in his hand had also turned into a real sword phantom. When Xiaohua and Wen Chu attacked Xia Xian at the same time, the celestial being and the Jade Pure Palace Master had already noticed that something was amiss. They both stopped and stood to the side. Seeing Immortal Emperor Gaochen make his move, the Jade Pure Palace Master seemed to understand something. He looked deeply at the phantom of the Son of Heaven's sword inside the golden light and clasped his hands towards Immortal Emperor Gaochen. "Congratulations, Your Majesty." "Damn." The celestial being grinned and said, "Dao friend Xiao, so you didn't come to cause trouble at the Immortal Palace." Heavenly King Qin Yu and Heavenly King Fu Yu were even more alert. When they attacked Xiaohua, they still held back 40% of their strength. When they saw the sudden change, they all retreated. At this time, seeing Immortal Emperor Gaochen personally make a move, they also understood and bowed together. "Your Majesty is wise, congratulations." On the other hand, the East Sea Empress flew over in a very strange manner. She looked at Xiaohua in confusion, then at Sun Jian. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but stopped. "Jade Pure Palace Master, Tai Pure Palace Master." Sun Jian saw the Immortal Emperor use the Golden Throne to suppress the Hall Master of Heaven's secret hall, Xia Xian, and his heart calmed. Golden light flashed around his body, revealing his original appearance. He bowed and said, "Junior has offended you just now, please forgive me." You. The Tai Pure Palace Master looked at Sun Jian in surprise and said, "You're already the sage of literature." It wasn't just the Tai Pure Palace Master. Heavenly King Qin Yu, Heavenly King Fu Yu, and the others were also very shocked. They couldn't believe their eyes. Everyone. Immortal Emperor Gaochen glanced at Xiaohua and revealed a meaningful smile. He said, "Everything before was set up by this emperor. The goal was to find this heaven-defying thief who secretly took the Son of Heaven's sword's shell. Xiaohua, enlightened Master Xiao, is a good friend of the Wisdom Palace Master. How could he cause trouble at the Southern Heaven's Gate? And the Scholar Palace Master, Wen Chu, is the immortal master of our Confucian cultivators. How could he betray the immortal palace? Today, Taoist Xiao helped this emperor capture this emperor. This emperor is very grateful, so this emperor will confer upon Taoist Xiao the title of Thunder Master." Immortal Emperor Gaochen didn't ask for Xiaohua's opinion. Instead, he looked at the Tai Pure Palace Master and said with a smile, "Tai Pure Palace Master, you've seen Taoist Xiao's lightning hand. Do you think this title of Thunder Master is suitable? Your Majesty is wise." The Tai Pure Palace Master was also confused, so he could only cup his hands and flatter. "Good." Immortal Emperor Gaochen smiled and said, "This emperor, in the name of the Immortal Palace Master, confer upon Taoist Xiao the title of Thunder Master." What does this have to do with? Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knew that this was Immortal Emperor Gaochen's imperial technique. Even though he didn't really want to attack the Immortal Palace, his battle with the Tai Pure Palace Master and the Jade Pure Palace Master at the Southern Heavenly Gate would definitely make him famous in the 3 continents. This fame was a naked slap to Immortal Emperor Gaochen's face. No matter what the truth of the matter was, Immortal Emperor Gaochen couldn't defend himself. But at this moment, Immortal Emperor Gaochen actually took advantage of Xia Xian's capture to cleverly resolve the crisis with a force of 4 taels to 1,000 jin. He said that this embarrassing farce was deliberately arranged by himself. One had to admit that this Immortal Emperor Gaochen was truly the master of the Immortal Palace, causing Xiaohua to feel admiration in his heart. Xiaohua didn't put the title of Thunder Master in his eyes. He actually had the heart to refuse, but at this moment, after Immortal Emperor Gaochen finished speaking, one after another, jade-like inscriptions flew out from his mouth. These inscriptions fell in the air and gave birth to countless strange lights and shadows. Where these lights and shadows flashed, the immortal palace also faintly trembled. Boom boom boom. The sound of thunder rushed out from the immortal palace. One after another, the power of an indescribable law transformed into the shape of a crown and fell towards Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. Just as he was about to activate his divine ability to stop it, the five-colored true qi in his body was lively and surging in his middle dantian. Then, like a fountain, it rushed towards the top of his head. Seeing the abnormality of the five-colored true qi, Xiaohua knew that this law was not directed at him, so he didn't stop this true qi. However, just as the five-colored true qi was about to rush out of his body, Xiaohua suddenly had a thought and hurriedly suppressed the five-colored true qi. This was because he understood very well that as long as his five-colored true qi rushed out, Wen Chu would definitely have a reaction. Then, the fact that Wen Chu was his avatar would definitely be exposed in front of immortal Emperor Gaochen and the others. Damn it! Xiaohua secretly cursed, this immortal Emperor Gaochen is too cunning. Sure enough, seeing that the crown of light fell on Xiaohua's head and Wen Chu in the distance not making any movements, immortal Emperor Gaochen's eyes unconsciously gave birth to a strange expression. Of course, this expression was blocked by the golden light of the crown, so other people couldn't see it. The light fell on top of Xiaohua's head and turned into a crown. Just as the crown appeared, boom boom boom. Endless thunder and lightning appeared above the immortal palace, roaring as if it was congratulating. Congratulations Daoist Xiao. Seeing this, Sun Jian couldn't help but be overjoyed. He bowed and said, 10,000 thunder and lightning came to congratulate, Daoist Xiao is a true thunder master. While Sun Jian was congratulating, Xiaohua was even more happy in his heart, because the power of the law didn't just turn into a crown, it also penetrated into Xiaohua's body and fell into the five-colored true qi. Under the power of the law, the five-colored true qi became clearer and clearer, and what surprised Xiaohua the most was that under this law, the four halves of the half-sky heart were actually replenished by 20%. Good. Xiaohua was happy but also a little depressed. After all, he had received benefits from others, how could he not accept the title of Thunder Master? Thus, Xiaohua pretended to be in a difficult position, pondered for a moment, and said, "This Xiao thanks Immortal Emperor for thinking highly of me, but this Xiao still has a very important matter to ask your majesty, I don't know if your majesty can." "Rest assured, Daoist Xiao." Immortal Emperor Gaochen smiled and said, "You are now my immortal palace's Thunder Master. Although you are still a Daoist cultivator, as long as it involves the secrets of my Confucian cultivators, I won't answer you. But as for the other things I know, I can answer you. Moreover, this Thunder Master crown can be taken out at will. If you want to reveal your identity, you can just reveal the crown. If you don't want to reveal it, you can naturally keep it in your body. It doesn't have any special effect on you." Xiaohua was overjoyed. He glanced at the Eastern Sea Empress, and the Empress seemed to have a smile on her face as she slightly nodded at Xiaohua. Xiaohua understood, kept the Thunder Master crown, and said, "This Xiao wants to ask." Chapter 4601. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could finish, Immortal Emperor Gochen waved his hand and said, "Daoist Xiao, don't worry. Wait until I've dealt with this damn thing, then I'll talk to you." "All right." Xiaohua looked at Sun Jian, who nodded slightly. Soon after, Xiaohua moved to the side. The celestial being in Wen Chu also moved, forming a triangle with Xiaohua. "Everyone." Immortal Emperor Gochen glanced at Heavenly King Qin Yu, Heavenly King Fu Yu, and the others. Although his tone was calm, it carried an inviolable majesty. "You all have contributed. When I return to Lingyun Palace, I'll issue a decree. Now, all of you can return." "Thank you, your majesty." Heavenly King Qin Yu, Heavenly King Fu Yu, and the others were overjoyed. After bowing, they flew back to Southern Heaven Gate. At Southern Heaven Gate, Taibai Jinxing and the other officials were about to rush over. Seeing that the heavenly kings and immortal generals had all returned and only a few supreme cultivators were left in the sky, they also stopped and quietly waited there. Immortal Emperor Go Chen raised his hand and waved. Thousands of karmic luck mixed with inscriptions soared into the sky and covered the surrounding space. Then, his expression turned cold as he angrily rebuked, "Xie Xian, think about how much trust one have in you. Not only have I handed the mystery hall to you, I've even placed the safety of my immortal palace in your hands. But, how did you treat me? You clearly obtained the outer shell of the Son of Heaven's sword long ago, so why didn't you give it to me? Don't you know that the Son of Heaven's sword is a sacred weapon used by Confucian cultivators to suppress the world? Moreover, you also know that I obtained the true body of the Son of Heaven's sword from the godly devil blood pool. That day, you even vowed to search the world for the outer shell of the Son of Heaven's sword so that I could obtain the complete Son of Heaven's sword. However, I still remember every word you said that day, and your betrayal is like a knife carved into my heart. I suddenly feel that there's no one in this world that I can trust. Your Majesty." The master of Tai Ching Palace looked at Xie Xian in the golden light and said, "Xie Xian seems to have something to say." Sigh. Immortal Emperor Go Chen sighed, "This Xie Xian is truly cunning. Even I don't know when he cultivated to the star realm. Tianji Hall, he must have many secrets that I don't know." Immortal Emperor Go Chen's words were a bit ambiguous, but he quickly continued, "Master of the Grand Purity Palace, it is not that I don't want to give him a chance to speak, it is that I don't dare to. He knows me too well. I've already suffered a loss before." At this point, Immortal Emperor Go Chen told Sun Wu, "True Monarch Qingyuan, tell the origin of this matter to the Master of Dual Purity Palace, Your Majesty." He said Sun S's, Sun's, goes ts. He. With, he, and ants. And leaves btes. Ts, Xiao Hua and Sun Jian spent several tens of thousands of years in the heavenly prison. Even the masters of Tai Ching Palace and Jade Pure Palace were dumbfounded. They finally understood why Immortal Emperor Go Chen wanted so many immortal generals to leave. Only the masters of Two Pure Palace, who were Confucian cultivators, knew the terror of the heavenly prison. If those immortal generals knew that Sun Jian and Xiao Hua escaped from the heavenly prison and became supreme cultivators, they would enter the heavenly prison like dumplings. At that time, the immortal palaces would be empty. "Masters, don't worry." Immortal Emperor Go Chen smiled. "After we received the news, we immediately rushed to Black Ruins Mountain and personally sealed the entrance. Although that place is rather special, and we might not be able to maintain the seal for long, we will reinforce it regularly in the future. Plus, I'll seal this information so no one will know. Your Majesty's plan is too meticulous. We can't do it." The Master of Jade Pure Palace smiled and replied, "Thank you, Master of Jade Pure Palace." Immortal Emperor Go Chen was also happy. He pointed at Xie Xian inside the golden light and said, "Although I can't let him out, under my seal, I can still use the clear sky mirror to search his soul. Masters, you'll know what happened after you see it." "Very good." The Master of Tai Ching Palace nodded in agreement. Immortal Emperor Go Chen pointed his finger and the clear sky mirror fell into the sky. Then, a ray of light like the sun shot out from the clear sky mirror and fell into the golden light pillar, covering Xie Xian. Rumble. A series of thunderbolts erupted from the pillar of light, passing through the golden pillar of light and landing on Xie Xian's body. Illusory figures flew out from the pillar of light, and within those illusory figures, images flashed past. Some of these images were blurry, while others were clear. Some of the images were of Sun Hao killing the true scholar and defeating the Devis in front of Black Ruins Mountain. "Damn it!" The Master of Jade Pure Palace cursed. His calm face actually showed anger. Sun Jing was actually killed by that bastard Xie Xian. No wonder this king couldn't find his whereabouts no matter what. In the images, Xie Xian killed the generals of Black Ruins Mountain. Immortal Emperor Go Chen waved his hand and the clear sky mirror fell back into his hand. Immortal Emperor Go Chen's expression was cold. He glanced at everyone and asked, Xie Xian deserves 10,000 deaths. I want to kill him. Masters, do you have any objections? No. The master of Jade Pure Palace shook his head. No. The master of Tai Ching Palace also shook his head. When Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked at Wen Chu shook her head and replied, no. Good. Immortal Emperor Go Chen saw that the palace masters had no objections, so he pointed at the golden throne. Boom! A loud explosion came from the golden throne as it soared into the sky. At this time, the Empress, who was sitting on the other golden throne, also quickly stood up and pointed at the throne as well. That golden throne also fell into the golden light. Immortal Emperor Go Chen opened his mouth and a dragon-like cloud fell into the golden throne. The golden throne then turned into the shape of a guillotine. This guillotine was connected like a mountain and emitted buzzing noises as it spun down. The Eastern Sea Empress was not slow either. She also opened her mouth and a phoenix-like cloud fell into the other golden throne. This golden throne then turned into a guillotine with a surging golden light. Woo! The guillotine as large as a mountain and the guillotine as large as an ocean fell on the golden light. Inscription chains as thin as hair came out from the pillars of golden light and tightly bound Xie Xian's body. Not a single inch was spared. Crack, crack, crack. The guillotine spun and came down with majestic lightning bolts. These lightning bolts emitted an unstoppable destructive intent. All of this mercilessly fell on Xie Xian's body. In the time it took to drink half a cup of tea, the guillotine had completely swallowed Xie Xian's body. Xiao Hua also saw clearly that Xie Xian was not only killed by the two golden thrones, but even his soul couldn't escape. Moreover, when the guillotine and the guillotine combined together, didn't it look like an immortal slaying platform? Sai, Wen Xing of 9th level origin energy. Seeing Xie Xian being mercilessly killed by Immortal Emperor Go Chen using the immortal slaying platform, Xiao Hua also sighed. Who knows how many years of cultivation and how many hardships he went through, but he was destroyed by a single thought of greed. If he didn't have too many desires and only cultivated with a normal heart, how could he have ended up like this? If Xie Xian was like this, then how could Prince Lan not be like this? Because of this, our Dao sect's emphasis on being emotionless is also reasonable. However, some cultivators are too afraid of being entangled by desires, so they simply cut off all their desires. This is truly a bit excessive. Of course, Xiao Hua was only a bit emotional. He didn't sympathize with Xie Xian at all. He was thrown into the heavens prison by Xie Xian. If it wasn't for his heaven-defying luck, how could he still be standing here? After killing Xie Xian, Immortal Emperor Go Chen solemnly waved his hand and pulled out the Son of Heaven's sword from his waist. Thousands of auspicious lights rushed out from the sword and fell on the outer shell. The outer shell rushed into the auspicious lights and disappeared for a moment. Afterward, an endless stream of energy rushed out from the immortal palace and entered the Son of Heaven's sword. The sword energy from the Son of Heaven's sword covered the entire palace. Inside, the scriptures quickly flashed and filled the entire space. When Immortal Emperor Go Chen clenched his fist, the endless images all fell into his hand and were stored inside the Son of Heaven's sword. Congratulations, Your Majesty. Both Sun Jian and the master of the two pure palaces had excited expressions as they bowed and congratulated him. Congratulations, congratulations as well. Immortal Emperor Go Chen put away the Son of Heaven's sword and replied with a smile. Meanwhile, Xiao Hua watched as the immortal slaying platform transformed back into two golden thrones, which were kept by Immortal Emperor Go Chen and the Eastern Sea Empress respectively. He smiled and asked, Your Majesty, if it's possible, can you answer my question now? Master Xiao Lei seems to be very impatient. Immortal Emperor Go Chen killed Xie Xian and took the Son of Heaven's sword. He seemed to be very happy. Even though his expression couldn't be seen under the crown, his tone was very friendly. He smiled and said, Master Xiao Lei is now my immortal palace's Master Lei. You even helped me kill the traitor. I still want to hold a big banquet in the Lingyun Palace to ask for Master Lei's reward. Xiao Hua looked at the majestic immortal palace and smiled. There will be plenty of time in the future to go to the immortal palace. Your Majesty, please answer this Xiao's question first. Okay. Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked at the two masters of the pure jade palace and nodded. Master Xiao Lei, please speak. I will tell you everything I know. I want to ask. Xiao Hua looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen and said word by word, Ninth Princess Xian's whereabouts. At the mention of Xian, Immortal Emperor Go Chen's body trembled slightly. Then, he saw the inscriptions on the armor that had already landed on the Emperor's armor suddenly rush out again. Pa pa pa. With a series of chaotic sounds, tens of thousands of inscriptions on the armor exploded in midair. Clusters of sparks rushed into the sky. Chapter 4602. Your Majesty, my pure jade palace still has matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Seeing this, the pure jade palace master bowed slightly and was about to leave. Don't worry, pure jade palace master. Immortal Emperor Go Chen said faintly, after I finish speaking, we'll return to the immortal palace together. The pure jade palace master was helpless and could only stand there. However, he had already closed his eyes, leaving only one ear here. Xian violated the immortal law and has been imprisoned in the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal. Immortal Emperor Go Chen said coldly, does Master Xiao Lei have anything else to ask? Xiao Hua looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen with a smile that wasn't a smile and said, Your Majesty seems to know what I want to ask, so there's no need to change the topic. Xiao Hua. Immortal Emperor Go Chen's tone was even colder as he replied, Where Xian is imprisoned is my decision, it has nothing to do with you. You don't have the right to tell me what to do. Your Majesty. Xiao Hua didn't back down and asked forcefully, Your Majesty has already said that as long as it's not a secret of the Immortal Palace, Your Majesty will tell you everything you know. Where Princess Xian is imprisoned doesn't seem to be a secret of the Immortal Palace, right? Moreover, I only want to know where Princess Xian is imprisoned, that's all. Damn it. Immortal Emperor Go Chen was furious and turned to East Sea Empress and scolded, East Sea Empress, this is probably your idea, right? You actually dared to collude with the Dao sect behind my back. Your Majesty. East Sea Empress's tone was also cold as she replied, Xian is your flesh and blood after all. Although she violated the immortal law. Hasn't it been remedied now? Moreover, your gains are 100 times more than what you lost. Not only did Xian not make any mistakes, she even contributed. You. Why are you so heartless and not telling me where she is imprisoned? Could it be that your face is more important than Xian's several hundred years of loneliness and punishment? As for colluding, this concubine doesn't dare to accept this word. Presumably. Someone in the Medicine Flower Palace is worthy of this word. Master Xiao Lei came to ask for an audience, but as the master of the Immortal Palace, you actually came out of the Medicine Flower Palace. Hearing that East Sea Empress actually came to the Medicine Flower Palace Master, Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. He hastily learned to hide to listen to the Flower Palace Master. When he looked at Sun Jian again, he felt a little embarrassed. Humph. Immortal Emperor Go Chen snorted and interrupted her before she could finish. His voice was somewhat hysterical as he roared, That's right, I've hardened my heart. So what? On the day of the Heaven's Choice Assembly, how many chances did we give Xian? As long as she tells me Tian Xian's whereabouts, we will definitely not punish her. But what about her? In front of the Mahavairakana world-revered one, in front of the golden-winged Great Peng, in front of the many family heads who came to congratulate him, he shattered his dignity. For the sake of the immortal palace, I rack my brains every day, thinking hard about how to appease the 4 aristocratic families and how to play with the Buddhism sect and the demon clan. Relying on your favor, you didn't put me in your eyes and made me unable to get out of the embarrassing situation. The awkwardness that day. It's not like you didn't see it. You only knew how to beg bitterly. Did you think of my feelings? Have you ever thought of Ching Ching and Meow Meow? Now, look at you. You actually joined forces with Dao sect cultivators to force me. You. Do you still treat me as the master of the immortal palace in your eyes? At this point, he looked at Xiao Hua and said, Xiao Hua, and you? I don't know how Xin gave that half Tian Xin to you. However, since you took Tian Xin, you should know how important Tian Xin is to Xin. You are only a Dao sect cultivator. What use do you have for Tian Xin? Don't tell me you didn't have any other thoughts that day. You wanted to use Tian Xin to force me to do something. However, it's good that we had good fortune. When Chu appeared by your side, Tian Xin used his hand to return the 5 cheese unifications technique to my immortal palace. Today, you forced the immortal palace, we didn't pursue your crimes. This is already not bad. You actually dare to interrogate us? Seeing Immortal Emperor Go Chen turning hostile like flipping a book and immediately denying him after gaining the upper hand, Xiao Hua was also helpless. He said faintly, it's naturally useless for me to take Tian Xin. But Tian Xin. I can't return it to Xin. Xin also didn't tell me how important Tian Xin is. You naturally can't take it out. As long as Tian Xin touches it, it will definitely fuse together. How can you take it out? Immortal Emperor Go Chen said coldly, this is Xin's sorrow. So. Xiao Hua raised his head and said, I'm coming. I'm going to erase this sorrow. What? Immortal Emperor Go Chen sat up from his golden chair and roared, if we didn't tell you, would you have entered the immortal palace? Why not? Xiao Hua also sneered, previously, I didn't have the strength. Now. I can. Son. At this time, East Ocean Empress also stood up. After saying one word, she changed her words, Your Majesty, you. You have changed. You have really changed. You have changed so much that I don't dare to recognize you. There is no one in this world who doesn't change. We are changing, you are changing, Xin is also changing. However, your changes can't catch up to us. That's why you said we have changed. Immortal Emperor Go Chen said and pointed at Xiao Hua, isn't he also changing? Previously, he was just a small Dao sect cultivator struggling at death's door in hidden immortal continent. Now, he can be arrogant in front of us and point at us to interrogate us. East Ocean Empress shook her head in disappointment, you are wrong. When I said change, I wasn't talking about this change. Their change is a happy change, but your change is cold. Change is change. There is no difference in nature. Immortal Emperor Go Chen replied, for the immortal Dao. All changes are worth it. Yes, for the immortal Dao. East Ocean Empress sighed, I can abandon my family and bloodline. After saying this, East Ocean Empress patted her golden chair and turned into a golden light that rushed into the immortal palace. Under the golden light, 2 pearl-like tears shone with despair. Your Majesty, you really won't tell us? Xiao Hua watched East Ocean Empress leave and looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen with lightning eyes. You want to attack? Immortal Emperor Go Chen sneered, I'm not afraid of you knowing. Now that I have the Son of Heaven's sword, I have already surpassed the shackles of the 3 continents. Although you are a human Mahayana realm cultivator, you are still not us match. If you could activate the Son of Heaven's sword right now, would you still be here wasting time with me? Xiao Hua retorted. Humph. Immortal Emperor Go Chen snorted again. He raised his hand and pointed. The clear sky mirror flew out again and a pillar of golden light fell from the sky. You have a good plan. Xiao Hua sneered and said, do you think I am Xie Xian? Your imperial treasure that can restrain Confucian cultivators is not us match. While saying this, Xiao Hua rolled up his Taoist robe and took out the Kunlun mirror. The Kunlun mirror also flashed with a 9-colored pillar of light and shot towards the golden light. Rumble. Pa pa pa. Amidst the loud rumbling, the sound of shattering could be heard. Whether it was the golden light or the 9-colored pillar of light, they were all shattered. Even the space between the Kunlun mirror and the clear sky mirror started to distort strangely. Where this distortion landed, a hole appeared on the surface of the Kunlun mirror and the clear sky mirror, and a powerful suction force came from this hole. Damn it! Seeing the suction force from Xiao Hua's Kunlun mirror that was beyond his control, Immortal Emperor Go Chen did not dare to be careless. He quickly raised his hand and slapped his golden chair. Woo! A golden light flew down and covered the clear sky mirror. Xiao Hua was even more shocked. He quickly opened his mouth and a green light rushed out and covered the Kunlun mirror. Return! Xiao Hua saw the suction force decrease and immediately used his mind to put the Kunlun mirror into the space. Immortal Emperor Go Chen also understood and used the golden light to tell Xiao Hua about the clear sky mirror. Your Majesty. Sun Jian saw this and quickly bowed. The 9th princess has violated the immortal law, but Your Majesty has already punished her. Didn't Your Majesty say it already? The heavens used the master of the Palace of Literature to give Your Majesty the 5 energies origin technique, giving Your Majesty a weapon to subdue all the Confucian cultivators in the world. Now that Master Xiao Hua came to the immortal palace, didn't the heavens also use Master Xiao Hua to save the 9th princess and also to fulfill Your Majesty's familial love? Sun Jian's excuse came at the right time. Immortal Emperor Go Chen pondered for a moment and looked at Xiao Hua. Master Xiao Hua, I won't hide it from you. I have already agreed to the marriage proposal of the Nangong family in the Lingyun Palace. Your Majesty. Sun Jian was a little surprised and blurted out. How come I don't know about this? If I let you know everything, won't the Empress stay in the Lingyun Palace every day? Immortal Emperor Go Chen scolded with a gentle tone. Sun Jian quickly bowed and asked for forgiveness. I know my mistake. Your Majesty, please forgive me for my difficulties. Sigh, if I don't forgive you, how could I let you know? Immortal Emperor Go Chen sighed and said. If you all have difficulties, do you think I don't have any difficulties? Do you think I am willing to agree to the marriage proposal of the Nangong family? Do you think I am not willing to announce this happy event in the Lingyun Palace? Yes, your humble servant understands. How could Sun Jian understand? He was only carefully agreeing. Master Xiao Hua, I am not afraid of you laughing at me. Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked to the left and said. I am an immortal emperor who is only a figurehead. The 4 great clans are powerful and the 100 schools of thought are not convinced. Although my school of the military controls the immortal palaces and protects the fate of the Confucian cultivators, I feel like I am being roasted on a fire every day. The demons in the 1,000 demon sacred realm are very powerful. The Grand Saint of Starry Sky is in the Great Sage Hall. Perhaps not long after, the demons will launch a large-scale invasion. Although the Pure Land is inhabited by the human race, the Buddhist sect is prosperous. That oppressive Buddhist light always wants to fall on my hidden immortal continent. Sutra seeking extreme bliss, Sutra seeking extreme bliss. If it wasn't because I was powerless to stop it, how could I create this gimmick? Luckily, the Buddhist sect is undergoing a great change. Buddha Maitreya has rebelled from the Thunder Sound Temple and is temporarily residing in the snowy mountain. Ah! Xiao Hua was shocked and shouted. When did Buddha Maitreya rebel from the Thunder Sound Temple? Immortal Emperor Go Chen did not answer Xiao Hua. Instead, he continued. It is also at this time that the master of the literature palace descended from the heavens. My immortal palaces have the strength to play games. I do not want to lose this opportunity. Therefore, Master Xiao Hua, I have no choice but to ally with the Nangong family and borrow the 5 Qi unifying art to unify the Confucian cultivators in the world.